Hey, if you're out there watching, let me know. Hi, Grandpa Rails. How are you? Hey, Jeff. How are you? Welcome in. Welcome in. Unless he shocks me and is playing with me, Artie won't be here today. No, I don't look like Artie. I am his substitute. Artie could not be here today, but he wanted his live stream to go on. And if I can figure out a couple of things, I will. Oops. That's what I want to do. Come on. Where are you? Where are you? There we go. Now let's see if that works. Darn it, wrong one. I know. I really debated on trying to go all Aussie. I was going to try to post a picture of Artie, but my clip grab on this computer, actually the clip grab worked. The my video editor was not working. So, g'day, Artie Fatty here. Yeah. We can't make jokes like that, Dwight, today because Artie is trying to get his travel papers cleared to come to the United States, and he's worried that they might see something online here. Hey, Jerry, how are you? He's a little bit worried that, so he doesn't want me making any jokes about that because he's worried they might look at his online and go, what's all this stuff about you doing? And it's just a joke. So I've been hemming and hawing for days since Artie asked me to do this. Again, he could have just canceled his stream, but he wanted me to run it today just to keep it going. So now I just did my live feed today, so I didn't think anybody wanted to just see me running my trains again, especially it's a little harder to do on StreamYard. I could rotate cameras and run my trains again, but I don't know how you guys felt, but I've really enjoyed Artie going out and about and showing us where he lives and telling us a little bit of the stories and the history of his region of Australia. Hi, Ethan, how are you? But let me post the link here if I can get it. I just have to find the right place. Copy link. And if anybody wants to come in up and chat, you can just, well, that might not be it. Yeah. So maybe won't hit enter on that one. Not sure why that. I don't know. Will this one work? I don't know. It's my first time running a meeting on StreamYard. I don't know if this will come up to you or not, if that will work. I don't know if that's not the right link, then I'm at a loss. So just bear with me. But anyhow, I've enjoyed it. So what I thought I'd do is kind of keep that theme, but take you guys on a virtual tour of where I've been in Germany. Many of you have heard me talk about the city of Delmenhorst. And so I thought I'd just take you on a virtual tour of Delmenhorst. I can't do it by live camera, but I've got a little slideshow I can take you through. And if you guys are interested in that, great. If you want to just see me run trains, I can try to pop a different camera up here and you can watch the trains run, but it won't be set up the same way my main live feed is. But if anybody wants to pop up and add to the chat, try that link. I am really trying to sort this out. And we'll see how that goes. Cool train layout. Well, thank you. No, I can't run Artie's train. I don't have Heath set up where you can run somebody else's trains from a distance, nor do I have access to his home cameras. So unfortunately, it's just that. But like I said, I'm trying to post a link here. I hope one of these two links will work if anybody wants to pop up on screen. Otherwise, I just thought I'd keep, it's Artie's stream, but without Artie guiding it and steering it. Hey, Randall, how are you? And so try one of those two links. See if one of those two links work. If somebody wants to pop up with me, you guys can share whatever you want. But like I said, there's Randall. Hey, Randall, bada bing, bada boom. We'll pop you right.
What's happening, Anthony?
Not much. Just been hemming and hawing about what to do for Artie's stream today, and really wasn't coming up with great ideas because I've been so busy with other stuff. How are you been?
It's been a pretty wild week so far for me.
That's what I've heard. Between storms and a lot of running and just catching what you've said in chat rooms, a lot of things you've had to do this week.
I think this week I've worked 82 hours this week already.
Oh, 82 hours. Oh. The last time I worked 82 hours, I was in college. So, are you at home or are you at Thayer or somewhere?
For right now, I'm at home. They haven't called me yet.
Okay.
I looked on the board and they're showing me at number 4. So, which on Saturdays and Sundays that might as well be number 1 because most of the time the other 3 drivers won't answer their phones. So,
gotcha. All right. Well, what I'm doing for now is I thought, even though it's Artie's stream, Artie just wanted me to keep it going, and I can't speak for Artie in his place. I've enjoyed Artie doing all his tours of Australia because I just love seeing where other people live and what it's like there. But since I'm here and I didn't have time to come up with some crazy skit or some insanity to keep people going for an hour, and I don't want to just do a repeat of my live stream, what I got here is a little picture tour, a slideshow, and I was going to show people that do come to my channel. If you don't come to my channel, you might not find it very interesting, but this is the city that from 2003 to 2016 I ran an exchange program with. I, out of the blue in 2002, got asked by the mayor and several other people from the city of Delmenhorst. They visited Toledo because Toledo and Delmenhorst became sister cities and partner cities. And they asked me to, for some reason, out of all the German teachers and German programs in Northwest Ohio, they picked me to be the guy. And there was a German teacher at a school in Delmenhorst. His name was Uli Rooker. And he and I put together an exchange program. And beginning in 2003, I took a bunch of students from my high school over to Germany. And then he brought some of his students to Toledo. And I fell in love with the city of Delmenhorst. It became a home away from home. It was the first time I'd traveled overseas. I was 39 years old at the time, and it was just, you know, I always said I discovered Germany through Delmenhorst, which is when 15 years later I got into model trains. The one thing that had to be on my layout, and the one thing that is on my layout, is Delmenhorst. I still don't have the town hall and all that, but feel free to jump in and mention anything, or if you got another new loco, because you've got all three of those new locos now, right?
I've got all three of them now. I've already done the review on them.
Right.
And so far they've all run good. You know, I only tried
did.
them out during the reviews, so
yeah, they
I'm
did.
real pleased with what I got. So
you did great reviews, and if anybody in here is not subscribed to Randall's channel, check it out. He does great reviews of locos. He does American locos, so most of you here would be familiar with that. He gets a lot of cool stuff, and but otherwise, while we're doing that, so this is the train station of Delmenhorst, and if you ever look on my layout, you will see this. This is on my layout. My layout is a 100% scale accurate recreation of this train station here. This is the Delmenhorst Bahnhof, as they call it in Germany. And what is unique about it, and when I say unique, it's not like it's the only one in the world, obviously, but it is a subterranean. The tracks run above the station. So this is actually a viaduct, and they built it in there. A long time ago, there was a much fancier and prettier train station here, long before I started the exchange program. I think they tore it down after World War II in the late 50s. They had a very fancy one here, but it was on a floodplain. So when they built up the new station, they created a viaduct so people could get from one side of the town to the other. You know, because when they built this up to get the tracks and the out of the floodplain, they blocked off access from that part of the city, the other side of the station, to this side of the city. So they built a viaduct, and then they built the station inside the viaduct, or they built the lower level inside the viaduct there. But anyhow, Delmenhorst is a city in northwestern Germany, about 73,000 people. This is what's on the other side of Delmenhorst. It's a big mall called the Utah Center, and it's just got all kinds of shops. It had a movie theater in it one time, but I think the movie theater has since closed. But like any German town, it's just got its little quirks and things. I'll pop this up real quick. This is still standing there. Delmenhorst was actually famous. If anybody here's ever heard of Armstrong tiles, Armstrong flooring tiles, their European selection was made in Delmenhorst. They were headquartered in Delmenhorst. Obviously, they're around the world, but their European factory was in the city of Delmenhorst until about 25 years ago when they shut the factory down, which really economically hurt the city. But the other big thing Delmenhorst was famous for was wool. It's a large sheep area up in that region, and they had a massive wool producing factory and a major company called Nordwolle. And Nordwolle had a massive wool and wool product producing factory, which is about 2 blocks down the street from Delmenhorst Station. And what happened is when the factory closed about 30, 40 years ago, they turned a lot of those buildings into small family housing. They're all a bunch of apartments, and that's what you see here now. This was actually a cotton production facility, and it got turned into some people would call it low-income housing, but it really isn't low-income housing, but it's small housing. So here you can see the main building that is now a museum to the wool industry of Delmenhorst. And so it still says Nordvola. But Nordvola, the factory, had its own community. I mean, it had, it created housing and for the workers, homes, yards, school. So it was like the miners in West Virginia and so forth, where the company kind of owned their lives. They gave you a home, you had your own store that you went to. So that's what Nordvola was kind of like in Delmenhorst.
It's a big place.
It was a big factory, but unfortunately, that and the loss of Armstrong tiles really crippled Delmenhorst. And that's where, as a Toledoan, I can relate to Delmenhorst, because Toledo is a city. Champion spark plugs used to be made here. Champion spark plugs, the famous spark plugs. They were headquartered and based here in Toledo. Owens Corning Fiberglass, headquartered here in Toledo, and originally was all produced here in Toledo. Libby Owens Ford, Libby Owens Glass, they were all produced here. Toledo was called the glass capital of the world, but all the factories closed and moved elsewhere. And it really crippled Toledo. We still have Jeep here, and we still make Jeep here. And a couple of times Jeep has threatened to close and leave Toledo, and basically they held a gun to Toledo, said to get all the tax breaks. But if Jeep were to close, Toledo would be screwed. And Toledo is like so many northern Rust Belt cities. Toledo is a city that, when I was 15, Toledo had a population of 400,000 people. Now it's 290. So we've lost a third of our population in the last 40 years. But this is what's called the City Hotel. This is just a visual tour. If you walked out of the train station and the first picture I showed you, and this is the first thing you'd see. You walk out of the train station, you would see this building, which is called the City Hotel. It's just a little brick hotel. Sadly, Delmenhorst does not have a lot of the historical stuff going to it. The typical city Maypost, as it's called, the Maypole. Hey, Kiwi Dave, how are you? Welcome to Artie's show, but Artie won't be here today, so he asked me to just fill in. So you pass the Maypole and you walk across the street, the City Hotel. You can actually see there's a sign here, still here. So this is walking towards the heart of the city, and there's just all these little post-World War II shops. Delmenhorst did not suffer a lot of damage during World War II, but it did take some damage because Bremen was a major factory city. In fact, Mercedes-Benz is still has a factory in Bremen. Mercedes-Benz headquarters is in Stuttgart in southern Germany, but they have a major factory in Bremen. So Bremen was a major production city and port city during World War II. So once the Allies began bombing it, they bombed Bremen, and Delmenhorst took its share of damage. So when cities were damaged during World War II in Germany, they made choices. Some were, let's build the old historical areas up, and others were like, hey, it's a good excuse to build modern. Delmenhorst being a smaller town, they didn't build historically, but they didn't build modern. It's really, it's a very simplistic architectural style when you go through the city. But you just keep heading down the street, and that's the Evangelische Stadtkirche. Every city in Germany, in the north at least, has an Evangelische Stadtkirche, which means city church. Evangelisch basically means Lutheran, but it can be any Protestant denomination. And you come to this circle, and the church is to the left. The city town hall is angled to the left. And then dead ahead is the old shopping area, the big shopping area. This is the big bank that was on that corner, and there's the church to the left. That church is 800 years old, and that's what impresses me. Now you can go to Greece and see things 3,000 years old, go to Egypt and see things 7,000 years old. But as an American, and in Toledo, where the oldest thing is about 150 years old, when you see something that is 8 centuries old, it's impressive. It blows your mind. And of course, there's a cool looking trike there. But this is the church, and it is St. Lamberti, I think its official name is, but it's just known as the Evangelische Stadtkirche, and it's the oldest church. And that was back in the day when we didn't have it. But typical of many German towns, there's usually, like, there used to be a building in the corner here that was just torn down, and somebody painted a mural of what the street used to look like in the 1940s or 1930s before the war. And they just kind of decorate the buildings. Again, it's now, this is the Delma River. And as you're crossing into, just about to head into the city center, this is the small river that flows through the town. It's called the Delma. And the city Delmenhorst gets its name because Horst is an old German word that becomes the English word fort. So, hey, Jean Ricard, how are you? Let's pop you up here.
Yes, good evening, Anthony.
Nice to have you. I think somebody's got their needs to turn their YouTube off.
Hello, John.
We're getting echo.
Pardon me, what did you say, Anthony?
Well, I think you fixed it.
Okay. It was just I was listening to your explanation on the tour of Delmenhorst as well. That might be the reason why you had some kind of disturbance.
Yeah, just got feedback. Yeah.
But they are very nice, your pictures from Delmenhorst.
Yeah, some of these are older. Some of these are older and the scale is smaller. But yeah, and so I just if somebody's got something they want to show or talk about, I'll pop you up on the screen. I just thought this might be interesting, but of course I could be crazy.
Hey, Anthony, JD's asking if that's your ride, that motorcycle.
No, that was not my ride. My ride is a Charger, will always be a Charger. My dad was a big motorcycle guy, but he always rode Honda. Well, the last ones he rode were the Honda Interstates and Gold Wings. But my dad was always a Honda guy. But
the only motorcycle we got's a couple of Honda 70s.
My dad started with a Honda 350, then moved up to the 750, and then it was all Gold Wings and Interstates. I think the last one that had a number was a 1200 on it, the Gold Wing 1200 or the Interstate 1200, I forget. He had an accident when he was about 63, 64 on his motorcycle, and that ended his motorcycle riding days. He couldn't get back on it. He had double hip replacement surgery over the next 5 years, and so yeah, he never rode a motorcycle again, and I think it took something out of him. My dad, for fun, would stick us in front of him on a motorcycle and then do about 110 down the street, which is why I never rode a motorcycle.
And I could probably see why.
7 years old, we're going to, and by the way, no helmet, kids. My dad, a helmet? What's a helmet? Until we passed helmet laws. And then my dad was president of a motorcycle club and encouraged and helped fight the helmet law in Ohio and helped repeal it. So if you think that's good or bad, one way or the other, my dad got the law repealed. And so if you were solo on a motorcycle, you didn't have to wear a helmet. But yeah, let me finish this real quick. The city of Delmenhorst literally means fort on the Delma River. And what it was the city of Bremen, the Archbishop of Bremen, was feuding with, let me flip that the other way. The Duke of Oldenburg in the 1100s was feuding with the Archbishop of Bremen. Oldenburg is west of Delmenhorst, and Bremen is east of Delmenhorst. And as the Middle Ages went, nobility would have border issues with each other. So in the mid 1100s, he ordered some troops to build a fort on the Delma River as I eye on the Archbishop of Bremen and the soldiers from Bremen. And in the 1200s, the 1240s, that fort was turned into a stone castle. And it was the one claim to fame, and I'll try to show it when I get to it, because the castle doesn't exist anymore. The castle was taken down stone by stone, and there's nothing left but a few foundation stones of the castle, which is a shame. And yeah, as you walk up here, you come around. There's 3 different streets that'll take you to the main city square. But this one was great because I used to be friends with the guy who owned a little restaurant. I'm sorry, right here, Rischmüller's Konditorei and Cafe. A konditorei is a pastry shop, donuts, cakes, and cookies and stuff like that. It's a bakery, but they do ice cream and so it was a confectionery shop. Konditorei is like German for confectionery. Yeah, I knew that guy for years. Sadly, he grew old and sick, and he closed it down in 2011, and which is really a shame because he had great ice cream and great cake there. But again, just fountains and stuff like that. This is just stuff you'd pass on your way. And now we're back into the town, and this is the main street. This street has been here for 700 years. It's called Lange Strasse, which simply means long street, the long street. But this is the main shopping street, pedestrian zone, no cars allowed, which I always love in Europe. I love getting into these places, no cars. A couple of American cities have them, but for the most part, not. But it's very cool. You just get this area where no cars are allowed, and it's just all shopping. And you just go up and down the street. But this street has been there since the 1200s, since about 1270. Because once the castle was established, a small village arose next to the castle, and that's where the town of Delmenhorst arose from. So these are just all the shopping things there. They're just a stupid little story. There's a little place here. You see this pretzel symbol. This is Deech's Bakery. Now, Deech's is a chain. And Deech's, and this particular one closed in 2019. Last time we were in Germany, it had closed right before we got back to Germany in 2019. But Deech's sells these little mini cardboard pizzas that if you were in America looking for a good meal or in Germany looking for a good meal, you would never think of buying it. It's low grade. It's like some cheap pizza you'd buy, mini pizza you'd buy at the frozen pizza section of your store, some off-brand. But the thing is, when you are just looking for a snack and pizza, something akin to pizza sounds good, you go over there, you grab one, they're like heroin. The first time you eat it, you're like, wow, this is low quality. But then the next time you walk past the Deech's, you're like, I want another one. It's really, I think they have heroin in them because you go from thinking they're awful to, I'd like another one. Now I wish I had cameras where I could show you. I wish I had a camera. I have actually built this building. This building that you see in this picture is on my layout. I just don't have any camera pointed at it that I could show it to you. But this is one of the buildings I've already built a kit bash. I bought a kit that looked enough like this, and then I just painted it and worked on it, and then added the signage. But this building is actually on my layout on my Delmenhorst side. It's one of the buildings I did actually create. I just don't really have a good way to bring it to you. And so, just shopping area. The bank, everything. This is just all the shopping area. The Alibaba, Turkish restaurants abound because the number one minority in Germany is Turks. And so you have a lot of Turkish-owned restaurants and Turkish-owned places. And the Turkish shops are the best places to get cold pop if you want a cold cola or pop. Germans tend to keep their pop slightly less than room temperature. The Turks keep it ice cold. If you want a cold Coca-Cola, you go to a Turkish carryout or a Turkish shop. Now we're at the main square. This is a little public performance gallery. Every year, Delmenhorst has a large Lego convention inside this little building here. They have a big, it's always right after we leave. I think it's first week of July. They have a big Lego convention in this building and on the market square in front of this area. They also will have indoor music performances, string quartets, and things like that may come in. It's a free open space. When you go inside, there's a couple little shops on the wings, but it's bigger than it looks in this picture. But they have what they call a Börse. Now, Börse actually means an exchange, like the stock exchange in Germany would be called the Börse. But they have a Lego Börse here, a Lego exchange. And this is just more of the market square. Nice. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. That might help make the pictures a little bigger. And yes, you have a McDonald's. Now, McDonald's, in case you wonder, does not taste anything like American McDonald's. It's different. It's probably better quality, but yeah. Now, the oldest surviving buildings in Delmenhorst are all right here. Now, this one here was called McNary's. Now it's called Tomar's. It's changed hands a couple of times. But when we first started going to Delmenhorst, this was a very lime green building, and the new owners painted it yellow. I don't know if one of the following pictures will show that. And then next to it is a tobacco dealer. Tobacco and pen shop. Now, how those two go together, I don't know, but a tobacco and pen shop. But Mr. Niemeyer, the thing is, I've met Mr. Niemeyer, and he's a real nice guy, because when he closes his shop at 5:30, because by the way, people, most German cities close between 5:30 and 6. Stores shut down. There's no 7 o'clock running out to Walmart or 8 o'clock running to the grocery store. They close at 6. Families get to go home and be with their families. You can get beer at some McDonald's. At this particular one, you cannot get a beer. But there's like 20 other places you can get a beer. And besides, you'd probably get a better beer at a different place than any beer McDonald's would sell. But Mr. Niemeyer was a real nice guy. He runs the shop here. And then, but when all these other places close, the things that do stay open are the cafes and the restaurants. They stay open till 10, 11, or midnight. And so people will set out tables out here, and there's a couple of restaurants to the right of this picture. And the guys that, for example, like the person that owns Monari's here, they live up here. They live on the first floor. They live on the first floor here. And yes, in Germany, that's the first floor. This is the ground floor and then the first floor. In the United States, ground floor is first floor, but in Germany and many countries, first floor is up. True, Steve. And then the family that owns it lives on that first floor, and then the second floor is storage for the shop, and then the third floor they rent out as an apartment to somebody that works on the street here. You get these highest floors are often apartments that get rented out to people who live or work. Who work in this neighborhood. So it's like a 4-minute walk to work. If you work at Menards, it's a 10-second walk to work. But I got to know the apothecary, Apotheke in German. This guy is a, see, that's Monari's. But the Apotheke here, let's zoom it in a bit, because this is after the market's gone. They only have the market. In big cities, the market is every day. But in Delmenhorst, the market is 3 days a week. It's Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday are the market days. So most of the time, the big market square is just open. But this guy is my friend because in Germany, you can't even buy an aspirin at a grocery store or a carryout. You have to go to a pharmacist to buy any kind of medicine. Stomach upset medicine, Tums, anything like that, you have to go to a pharmacist. You cannot buy it, even though there are stores that we would call health and beauty or drug stores. They can't sell drugs there. You can only sell medicines at a pharmacy, and the pharmacist has a doctorate degree. He is a doctor of medicines. And a lot of times, if you're feeling sick, you go and tell him what your symptoms are, and you don't have to go to a doctor and get a prescription. The pharmacist, if he feels he can diagnose it, he can give you the medicine right there. You cut out the middleman in a lot of cases. And so if one of my students was sick or something like that, he would be sitting there having a beer, and he would wave me over. We'd sit talk and says, "So, Anthony, do you need anything?" And I was like, "Well, a couple of my students have been complaining about an upset stomach. All right, come on in." And he'd reopen his shop and sell me or Joyce a couple of things and go. Or I would take my students to him. Like I would tell my students, if you see this guy, go talk to him. And he'd take him in his shop and give him an aspirin, sell him an aspirin or whatever. Now, again, we had legal things. The parents had to be cleared. What medicines can the kid take? Or, can somebody else give the kid medicine, etc. We had legal things, but overall it was relatively easy to do. Again, guys, if you have questions or if you're bored, tell me you want to change ideas. I just rolling through this. So here's what the market looks like when it's open. And I love going through the markets in Germany. Or if I were in France or Denmark or wherever else, I just love walking through the open air markets, fresh food, fresh meat, fresh cheese. But
it's only a food market. It's not with clothes and
right
and so
right.
So it's like a farmer's market then.
Yeah, it's what we call a farmer's market. Yes.
Yeah.
In big cities like Bremen, they'll actually have people at the market selling toys, clothing. Like if you're driving in a city in America, my fellow Americans, sometimes you got those people set up on a street corner and they're selling flags or they're selling jackets or T-shirts like that, or velvet Elvis paintings. In a big city like Bremen, you will find some of those people at the market as well. But yeah, Delmenhorst is a small enough town. It is strictly a farmer's market, flowers and food. Every now and then you'll find somebody selling some kind of trinket like beads or something like that. So you might have a couple of artisans, craftspeople selling their gifts there. But yes, you're absolutely right, Jean-Ricard. It's basically a farmer's market. And here's some much younger and getting fatter bald guy right here, American, with a bunch of his students. My American students walking through the market area. So, in fact, this is my son. This the kid in the striped shirt in the middle of the picture with his back to you is actually my son. This picture is from 2007. Yeah, 2007. So that was 19 years ago. This is my son, and he's getting married next year, but he was a kid then. Now, the Delma River actually is flowing just on the other side of this fence here. It gets really narrow through here, and these are just some of the homes. And yes, I do plan on custom building. Actually, I've got this building, the white one with a little bit of red brick. I've actually already made that building. But I've got to find the right model and build the white and blue one. I've always loved this house. I thought it was really cool. It used to be all blue. And then they, couple of years into our exchange program, they painted most of it white. But when we first started going to Delmenhorst, the entire building was blue. And then this building actually doesn't exist anymore. It was torn down. But this was an old hotel, and a neo-Nazi group tried to buy it. So the city outbid the neo-Nazi group, and it sat abandoned for a while, and then they finally tore it down. But it was the big hotel, the big city hotel. a rainy day on the square, which is actually just starting to set up for the city festival. The city festival, the city fest, the Stadtfest, as it's called, was usually while we were there. And then, like all European cities, and Jean Ricard, you can talk about maybe it in Denmark. This is a memorial. Most German cities have war memorial areas where they usually have what war and what locals died in that war. So over on here, on the far left, you might have guys who died during the Napoleonic Wars, guys who died during World War I, and yes, soldiers who died during World War II. But it's just the Franco-Prussian War, all the different wars, the local guys that died, and they just add to it. Every German city I've been to has some kind of plaque where it has the names of all the men and some women who died in wars. But then the little grave symbol here is in the front of the picture. It is a memorial to the Jews of the region who died during the Holocaust. And every German city has some kind of memorial. And one thing they'll have, and I think it will be coming up in one of the pictures soon, but not right away because this is not thematically organized. It's more like if as you were walking from point A to point B, here's what you see. Now, this is the holdup on my layout. The number one reason I am not working on my layout is I need to build this building. That is the City Hall of Delmenhorst. No, it's not one of the elaborate, gorgeous, beautiful city halls that you would see in Hamburg or Munich. But this is the town hall. This is the city hall. And I want to recreate all these buildings that are on the market square. I want to recreate the market square I've built the train station and the bus station. The other thing I want to create on my layout table is this, but I cannot scratch build this. I just can't. I actually did start at one time and I just can't. And so I'm really trying to look at 3D print it. And I've been trying to computer graphic build it. I even found an architect in Germany online who did 3-dimensional drawings of this building, this whole square, 3-dimensional drawings where he obviously would have had it. I'm sorry, I'm saying he, it was a she, where she obviously measured it, drew it, and set it up for like printing, like an architect, a 3D architect design. And I sent her a letter 3 times saying, hey, I will buy the information from you. They did this as just a project. It was done in an architectural 3D design, but it wasn't an architectural. They just posted this on a site and said, hey, look what I did. And I sent them emails saying, I would be willing to negotiate a price to buy your measurements and your design and convert them to STL or something else and 3D print it. And they never returned my emails.
Have you ever tried to ask the Delmenhorst council if they had blueprints of the building themselves, and you might get a copy from them?
Actually, yes, I have. And they told me they don't give it out.
Okay, that's for security reasons.
Exactly.
That's the same in Denmark. If you ask any semi-public building, that they consider that could be at risk at some point, they won't give you the buildings. But it was just a suggestion, if possible.
Yeah, and the thing is, Jean Ricard, it's a great suggestion, and to be honest, I at one time had an in, because if you know somebody, you can get the information. You can. If you know somebody, you can. They're just not going to give it to a random person on the street. But I was best friends with a former mayor of I shouldn't say best friends. I wasn't their best friend, but I was good friends with the former mayor of Delmenhorst, and she could have walked in there and said, gives this man the blueprints, and they would have done it. The problem is she died before I got into model trains.
Okay.
But I had that in. Her husband probably had a little pull and might have gotten him because he knows all the bigwigs and all the people in Delmhurst as well through his wife, but he was a very well-to-do businessman in the region himself. But by the time I was ready to build Delmenhorst, he had brain cancer and was not really going to be able to help me anymore. Two tragic stories there. But yeah, so I understood why they said no, but like you suggested, you take a shot, see what they say. Okay, so again, so I have all kinds of pictures of this because I wanted to build it, but I just there's so many little nuances about it that just don't work for me. And we're actually going in. This is a long time ago. My friend Uli Rooker, the man I started the program with, has his back to us here. The man in the blue shirt and the black jacket in the back, or actually that's navy blue jacket, he took over when Uli retired from teaching and retired from, well, actually he retired from the exchange program and then retired from teaching a couple of years later. He handed off to this guy, and this guy and I didn't get along. We actually, they handed it off to his wife, but we didn't get along. At times we could get along, and other times he was one of these guys that whenever there was any kind of a bump in the road with the exchange program, you know, somebody wasn't getting along with somebody, it was always the American kids' fault because the German kids were perfect. And that doesn't go over well.
No, but it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street, you know, and sometimes you blame the opposition.
Yeah, me, I never looked for blame. I always looked for a solution. Okay, what can we do to solve the problem? These two kids aren't getting along. They're living with each other. They're not getting along. Do we yank the kid out? What can we do? Can we find out why they're not getting along? You know, without going, well, it's all his fault. He's doing this. Because again, this was a gymnasium, and Jean Ricard, you understand what a gymnasium is. I don't know how many Americans understand what a gymnasium is.
Yes.
A gymnasium, the closest thing you can put to that you can equate a gymnasium with is think of the richest and snobbiest private high school in your town. That's not a true accurate comparison, but it's the closest. A gymnasium is supposed to be for the top kids, the kids that are going to go to university and become doctors, lawyers, financial ministers, and blah, 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 blah. It's supposed to be the highest academic level of school. And in fact, in Germany, to go to a university, you have to go to a gymnasium, or if you didn't go to a gymnasium, you have to go through several technical schools to get into a university the other way. But basically, you want to go to a university, you have to go to a gymnasium. So it's a very high academic school. And these kids were all studying English since 3rd or 4th grade. My kids were 10th and 11th graders that started studying German in 9th or 10th grade. So they had 1 year or 2 years of German, which means they didn't have a lot. And these German kids had 7, 8 years of German.
No, you cannot really say they had 7 or 8 years of German.
Of English, I mean.
Native language. So.
I mean, they had 7 or 8 years of English. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah, I said German. I was, it was their native language. But the thing is, the German kids at times were like, well, you Americans really don't know anything. You know, we speak English very well, and you don't speak our language at all. You're idiots. And it's like, well, you know, it's not quite that way. I mean, most of the German kids were great, but sometimes you had that attitude. My kids would come in and they're like, my kids had to sit in classes that were bilingual, where the teachers taught a little bit in German, a little bit in English. And when the teacher's teaching in German, my kids did not understand what was being said. And the teacher's calling on them, you American, yeah, what do you think? I have no idea what you just said, sir. Dumb Americans. and we were a very mixed school. In German, they would call my school, Bauer, they'd call it a Gesamtschule, which means a mixed school, a collective school, because we have honors programs and we had shop classes and we had classes for academically challenged kids and classes for honors kids. Well, hi, Rick Bailey. Welcome to Anthony Dodge's boring trip through Delmenhorst, because Artie's not here to take us on an exciting trip through Australia. But every year we had to meet with the mayor and members of the city council, who would give us a formal welcome. And one of my kids would have to get up and make a speech. It was always very nice. This was the mayor, Lehman. No. This was Jan. This was Herr Professor Jan, mayor at the time. Really nice guy. Really liked him. But the previous mayor, and here we're bringing glass made in Toledo as a gift to him. Very fancy cobalt blue glasses that were made here in Toledo. And we're presenting that to him. This fat guy, but my hair was darker back then. I'm all gray hair now, but meeting the mayor and my students all sitting around wondering. And then we always signed a book, a declaration. So you can see this one was from 2007. Well, thank you for that, JD. I appreciate that. Hey, Heath, how are you? So you can see Anthony S. Dodge signed his name. Joyce Dodge, my son, stuck his name in here. My daughter put her name here. And then all my students that were there and some of the German students that came with them. But we would always be in the newspaper. And we were even on TV in Germany a couple of times. We were on the radio a couple of times. We were in the various newspapers every year. It was a big deal. Both the local Delmenhorst paper and the Bremen, the big city, because Bremen is a city of about 550,000 people, which again, if you're from Philadelphia with 2 million people, 550,000 sounds small. If you're from Toledo, which is 300,000, 550,000 sounds big. But this is my students after the meeting, because in Germany, you walk or ride your bike everywhere. So they had to ride their bikes into town to meet with the mayor, and then they had to ride back to school. But now this is the other side of the Delmenhorst. And this is really just as difficult a side to make. I can't scratch build this. There's no way I can do it anymore. Like I said, I started. There are so many crevices. The roofs are not aligned. The windows, if you look, there's different patterns of windows. Then there's this little wall here that leads into this building here. But this is what I need built before I can do any more on Delmenhorst. I need this building and the building next to it built. I cannot create Delmenhorst until I get this building done. This is this is the other side of the city hall, and this is what is the street? Friedrich Ebert Allee. Yeah, Friedrich Ebert Allee. And so just various pictures of that. But this is the other building that's part of the complex. This is the water tower, the Wasserturm. And there's a big building in here, but this is the tallest point in Delmenhorst. And you can go to the top and get a nice aerial view. And on a sunny day, you can see Bremen, which is 10 miles away. But you go to the top of that and you get a nice view. Maybe one of my subs can build it someday, I hope.
Do you what year were this building complex built?
Great question. If I remember correctly, this particular town hall was built on the site of the old one, which was damaged during World War II. Some of it's still original. Some of it is I would say 1920s, and the rest of it was remodeled in the 1960s.
Okay, because when I see those buildings there, I somehow see some structure that resembles the way that the Germans built during the period of the Third Reich.
Yes. Yes. So
not
some of
to
this,
say they are Nazis, but they had a certain kind of monumental structures in that period of time.
right.
And that's what I see. So I have some kind of ambivalent feelings about it, when I see it.
Right. Well, I can tell you the part you're seeing here, like this gateway. Well, you can't see my cursor, or maybe you can. Can you guys see the?
I can see your cursor. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Yeah, this section here, I know dates to the 1920s.
Yes.
I know this here dates to 1920s because I've seen pictures of the town hall from the 1920s. A lot of these columns, because when you get into it, it was actually neo. Because in the late 1800s, everything was neo-Gothic in Germany. In the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. And Art Deco was big in the 1920s, but in some of these older towns, the Neo-Doric, the Neo-Greek movement was very strong, and Neo-Romanesque came in at this time. And so a lot of these structures have that architectural style. Hey, Thomas at Split Rock. Welcome to Anthony Dodge takes you on a tour of the little town of Delmenhorst. But you are right, again, with what you're saying. There is definitely some Nazi stuff. In fact, well, I'll explain it when I get to the castle, what happened to the castle. Because we are heading from this. This is just all the water tower and the flag at Delmenhorst. And here is Mr. Dodge and some of his students standing at the top. In fact, the young man's head down here and the girl here are sons of one of my oldest colleagues teaching, a Mr. Fink. He retired 5 years ago, but he and I taught. We both taught at a school called Leverett together for several years. Then he moved to Libby. Then I moved to Libby. Then he moved to Bowser. Then I moved to Bowser. These were all schools we taught at. So I always followed him wherever he went. But I took two of his kids to Germany. Very, very smart kids, great kids. So this also, you can see I even got aerial views of the roof and so forth. And this is one of the oddities I was talking about. If you look at the roof on this side, this wing comes in, and you can tell that this center area, this area was original and this was added on because the roof comes in this way. Over here, this section and this section roll as one piece. It's all one roof here. So whether this roof was repaired, but the roofs are not even. Hey, there's Dwight. How are you, Dwight? If I didn't say hi earlier.
Besides being a town hall, is it also? It looks very much like some of the places in Germany where they have combined, for example, the police station and the town hall, and sometimes also the judicial, the courtrooms of some sort.
No, this building is the city government and the main and the tourist office.
And that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep, that one. The jail is actually over by the school. That's funny. But again, up on the tower, you just get this great aerial view of the city. And a lot of these buildings have the little plant work and gardens on the roofs. Yeah, so let me see. Again, it's not a classical, pretty, old German town. It boomed in the 1900s with the factories. In fact, you can see one of the old smokestacks back there from the Nordwelle. That's where the train station's over to the right of this picture. But that's one of the old smokestacks from the Nordwelle. Not the Nordwelle. They had Armstrong had a linoleum production factory here. That's what I was trying to say. The Armstrong, and then you have the two churches: the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. Catholic Church, St. George is on the left. Protestant Church, St. Lamberti on the right. St. Lambert's, Catholic, Protestant. And then this is one of the old government buildings. This is the courts. This is the court, the various courts. The family court, the and criminal court are all in this building. That's all the courts. And then this is that hotel I mentioned that got torn down, that the neo-Nazi group was trying to buy, and the city bought them, but the city tried to sell it to developers and nobody would buy it. So now it's just a giant parking lot. And then this is the Friendship Park. This is a little park The school that I exchanged with is up and to the left and across the street. And I mean, literally just to the left as you're looking this way. And then behind me is the Berginsel. And Berginsel means castle island. A Burg is a fortified castle. German has 3 different words or more for castle. You can say Schloss, but that's more of a palace, a residence for nobility. But some fortified castles are called Schloss. But if it was an actual military fortification, it's a Burg or a Festung. But this was the park dedicated to all their sister cities. And so they called it Friendship Park. And every year we would get there, and one week the flowers would be one color, and that was their spring blooms. And then you'd see the workers come out and set up the summer blooms. So it was always interesting. We'd see it transform. Now, this picture is here for only one reason. It's my favorite restaurant in Delmenhorst. It's called the Graftwerk. A graft is a moat or any kind of a big ditch, usually of a fortified nature. So the Graftwerk, the moat works. And it's my favorite restaurant in Delmenhorst. This is the jail, in case you couldn't tell by the bars on the ceiling. This is like 30 feet away from my favorite restaurant. This jail sits mostly empty. When there's somebody in this jail, it's usually drunken, disorderly behavior.
Can I just say something, Anthony?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you were at a restaurant and like 30 feet away here in the States, and here 30 feet away is a jail? I mean,
absolutely. We'd be like, I ain't going to eat there. I ain't going to eat there.
You have people panicking all over the streets.
Nope. In Germany, that's the jail, and the side of the building, that's the police station and the jail. And it's right there. The city park is right behind me. You know, as you're looking at this picture, the city park, the big city park where the castle used to be, is right behind me. The school is a little bit further down to the left as you're looking at this picture. And you got the jail here. Now, I will tell you, over the years, we'd be walking under there and you'd hear a voice going, hey, who's down there? You got any cigarettes? You know, they'd say it all in German. Have I been inside that jail? Yes, I have been inside that building. How do you get to be a Bürgermeister? Split Rock, you get arrested because a Bürgermeister simply means a mayor. Bürger means citizen and Meister means master. So the term for mayor, which, by the way, if you don't know the word mayor, which is related to Spanish mayor, comes from the French meilleurs, which means master, major. They're all related. The word mayor and major are from the same word. So a Meister means a master. And so a Bürger was a citizen. Burg would be a city, a town. And a Bürger was one who came from a town. See, that's the fun you get to have with German. In German, if you are from, or if something is from a city, they add ER. Like, I'm from Toledo. If you're from Toledo, you're a Toledoan. If you're from Philadelphia, you're a Philadelphian. If you're from New York, you're an asshole. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, Heath. I'm sorry. If you're sorry, I just had to do that. If you're from Ohio, you're an Ohioan. But in Germany, wherever you're from, it's add ER. So if you're from Berlin, you're a Berliner, which is also a type of donut in Germany. If you're from Frankfurt, you're a Frankfurter, and that's where Frankfurters get their name. The hot dog Frankfurters got their name. They were developed in Frankfurt. If you're from Vienna, the German name for Vienna is Wien. So if you're from Vienna, you're a Wiener, and that's where the word Wiener Schnitzel, it means Viennese veal. Schnitzel is veal. Wiener means Viennese style veal. So a Wiener or a Wiener means from Vienna. If you're from Hamburg, you're a Hamburger. And my favorite one is, there's a city. Anybody remember the old capital of West Berlin, or of West Germany? The capital of West Germany before the Germanys were reunited again?
Bonn. The city of Bonn.
Yeah. Now, see, you say it the European way, Bonn. In America, we called it Bonn. So if you're from Berlin or if you were from the city of Bonn, you're a Bonner. You're a boner. Yeah, you were a boner if you were from there. But Hamburger, boner. If you're from Bremen, you're not a Bremener. You're just a Bremer. They shorten that down. If you're from Delmenhorst, you're a Delmenhorster. But yeah, so that is the jail. And like I said, yeah, it's right in the middle of town, the police office and the jail there. And this is going the other way. So this is to the right of the picture you're looking at. The Graftwerk is just to your left, but this is the other restaurant, and now it's all owned by Graftwerk. But at the one time, and this is heading down. You turn right from that picture. We turn right, and you cross this bridge, and you're now heading into the Burginsel, the fort. Yeah, most people called it Bonn, but it's Bone in German. It's Bone because the O is a long O. Bone. So Bona. Everybody else says Bonn, but in German it's Bonn. Bonn, because O is always pronounced O. Bone. And then the double N shortens it down a bit. So Bonn. Boner. But anyhow, what is unique is that Delmenhorst was a small castle. It was a small fortress, and yet it was seemed to be important enough that it had a double moat defensive system. They dammed the Delma River and diverted part of it, and they actually built, the Duke of Oldenburg's built a double moat system around Delmenhorst, the castle at Delmenhorst. It's one of the smallest forts in all of Germany to have been given a double moat system, which hints at its importance. It had 2 rings. So it had a double moat system, but you walk through, and so here's how wide the moat was, one part of it. And then the castle is gone. The castle was in ruins by the 1600s during the 30 Years' War. And after the 30 Years' War, so much of the castle was destroyed, and the royal family that had ruled Oldenburg, they didn't want to keep it anymore, so they abandoned it. They didn't need the fort anymore. The 30 Years' War had destroyed too much of it. It wasn't worth rebuilding with modern cannons and so forth. And so they abandoned the castle. They just left it there. Now, before I go any further with what happened to the castle, Jean Ricard already knows this, and we've joked about and talked about it a few times on the live stream, is the castle that's here in 1547, this area of Germany was invaded by Jean Ricard's home country, Denmark, during a little war called the Schmalkaldian War. And which is actually a series of wars, Schmalkaldian Wars. But Denmark invaded in 1547 and captured the castle, and then the Duke of Oldenburg and the Archbishop of Bremen joined their forces and retook the castle in 1549. So there were actually 2 battles there between the Danes and the Germans. So,
well, I would correct you a little bit and say by the Danish king, because at that time I don't think you can speak of Denmark as a state of itself. You know, it's more like the one of the king's possessions. He is the king of Denmark or the king of
right.
But to speak of it as a war between Denmark and Bremen, that really doesn't make sense at that time. It's because then you have a lot of possessions for the Danish king at that time. He would have part of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern.
Right. And yeah, and it was dynastic wars, and dynastic wars are very hard to explain in terms of because he was king of Denmark, but he had possessions elsewhere. But it was Danish troops that did take the castle.
Okay.
Yeah. He had possessions elsewhere. In fact, Oldenburg was a vassal to the king of Denmark for a while. and then after the 30 Years' War was a vassal to Sweden for a while. I actually met the surviving Duke of Oldenburg. The family's still there, but they have no power. They have no title. You know, in fact, in Germany, they're not even allowed to use the titles officially, but they'll, yes, I am the former, you know, if there were to be the position Duke of Oldenburg, that would be me. I got to meet that guy once. They, you know, you can take the title away from the nobility, but you can't take the nobility away from their titles.
That's probably correct.
So anyhow, they have, the park now has these little brick walls where the old fortification walls used to be that surrounded the castle. And actually, I don't think I have it in here. If I do, it was smart of me. But I have models of what the castle originally looked like. It was a little J-hooked castle. But this is where the actual main gates would have been, including the fact that many cities in the Middle Ages would have had a large gate for carriages to go through, which they only opened for carriages, and then they would have a foot traffic, a pedestrian gate. And so this gate entering still has it. You have the large vehicle gate, which is closed unless somebody has permission to drive a vehicle up, but then you have the pedestrian foot traffic because the park is open. And then this building is on the site where the old guardhouse used to be. This building was built in the late 1800s, I want to say. I almost said 1900s, but I think it was 1800s. But that's where the old guardhouse used to be. And then really from now you would have seen the castle because they had a 60-foot tall main tower. All right, Steve. I appreciate you guys stopping by. I don't know if you'd find this boring or not. There's my son again, years later. But so we're walking through, and there's that ball teacher. And so here's a little plaque commemorating 1547 when the castle was attacked. And then there's another one that says 1549 when it was taken back. And actually, there is a plaque over here, although they've moved the plaque now. The plaque was here, and now they've moved it onto another post that tells the whole history of the city of Delmenhorst. So you can see 1234, not Duke, Graf is Count Otto of Oldenburg established the fortress in the area of the Delma River. 1234, 1247, the castle was built. And blah, blah, blah. And then this is the home of the park keeper, the head of the city parks, because this is the main city park. And then this is actually the second moat. And again, you can see that same brick wall work there because it had a 2-moat system. And inside each moat was a 20-foot high wall, 20 foot high. And I think they said 15 foot thick. So they had big fortification walls, and then the main tower, there were 3 towers to the castle. There were 3 towers because it's not a castle the way you guys picture castles in movies. It was really just a J-hook building with 3 big towers, and the biggest tower was in the front, and it was 60 foot high, and it was thick, 60 foot high. About 20 feet thick, and the foundation stones to it are still standing. But here we go. Now we're walking on to where we're walking past the second moat, and then here is all that's left of the castle, basically. This is where the gate would have been to go inside the actual J-hook building. Jean Ricard and anybody who studied medieval history would probably understand this. You had a road from the gate, but the road from the main gate led to where actually between these trees right here is where the biggest tower would have been. You never had direct lines from one gate to another. You always had to go through one gate and then go to the side one way or the other and work your way in. And that was done for defensive purposes, so that if somebody broke through one gate, they had to go through a field of fire to get to the next gate. So you would have, if you broke through the main gate and came running through here to get into the main building, you would have had to go over to your right. And so this big tower with its archers would have been shooting down on you the whole time you're crossing. Doom and Ferd. Now, if you're trying to go with ass, in German, the word for ass, the animal is Esel, but it doesn't have the same meaning in English. Ass, as in a fool, is a Arsch, Dumarsch, or an Arschloch, which is asshole in German. Arschloch. Yeah. I have students who do that all the time. They'll come in because they get a dictionary, and they'll come in like 2 weeks into German, and they're walking around going, "Du bist ein Eselhole, du bist ein Eselhole, and I'm like, you have no idea what you're saying. Yeah, I do. No, you don't. Yeah, I do. I looked it up. What'd you look up, asshole? You're calling that person a donkey cave. Because hole is a cave. Esel, because see, dictionaries that the kids have access to are abridged, so it doesn't have the cuss words. So the kids think they're smart by looking up the word ass and the word hole. So they look up the word ass and they get Esel. Well, Esel means ass, but only as in a donkey. It doesn't mean ass like fool, jerk, the very derogatory. It's still not nice to call somebody an Esel, but it's, more like you're calling them stubborn than anything else. Hole can be a cave. It's a hole in the ground, a hole in a wall, a hole. So they're walking around going Esel hole, and basically I say you're calling somebody a donkey cave or a donkey pit. And if you say it the wrong way, then you're calling them donkey hell. So it's just it's so funny because kids think they can figure that out, but no, you have to look up the word for anus or ass and find a dictionary that's unabridged. But it's like Hitler's favorite word was Schweinehund, which means pig dog.
And that's actually kind of make one curious, because you also have in Germany the way that you can say that you have Schweineglück.
Yep, pig's luck.
Ein Glücksschwein.
Yep.
And so that can both be positive as well as negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are phrases that just do not translate from one language to another. It's like, and even then we use phrases in America like luck of the Irish. Oh, Bob won the lottery. Oh, he's got the luck of the Irish. Luck of the Irish is not a good thing. Luck of the Irish does not mean you're lucky. Luck of the Irish is a reaction. When somebody has the luck of the Irish, what they're saying, the luck of the Irish is a fatalistic attitude. The luck of the Irish is this: an Irishman is walking through a battlefield and steps on an old mine and blows his leg off. So the Irishman goes, "Oh, look at that. Aren't I lucky? Now I only have to buy myself one shoe."
Yeah.
That's luck of the Irish. Luck of the Irish is a gallows humor attitude towards a bad situation. People, but America, we've transformed it into meaning somebody got really lucky. But the original phrase Irish luck or luck of the Irish was negative. All right, so these are the few stones that are left. This is where there was a large wall and a building built into it, and this is the foundation stones of the wall because the building was mostly wood. And then the main entrance was actually over here where you see a gap between the rocks. And then just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going, eventually we'll come around here. I'll click this one instead. Here is a stone thing of what the castle looked like. So you had a wall here, which was actually just a large building. This was a large stone building. And what you're seeing is those little rocks formed this section right here. And then the biggest tower was called the Blue Tower, which was the fattest and tallest tower, 60 feet tall. And then over here you had the Round Tower and the Red Tower, which was a square tower. And the Red Tower is the only tower which survived the 30 Years' War, which was 1618 to 1648. And then this just shows you, like, this over here was the commandant's room. And so you see this little, like the commandant's chamber where he had his office and blah, blah, blah. But it was a small castle. So where you're standing, which is where this block is, it says Standort right here. So it says you're standing right here. So those blocks you're seeing are here. And then this is what the castle, there were a couple of small, I believe they said these two were stables. You know, this was just where they housed a couple of horses here, exterior buildings. But it was just like one giant hall building. And then they had a couple of wooden structures built over here as well. But it's not the big square military fortress you see, especially like in England or larger castles along the Rhine River and other parts of Germany. But I've seen other castles like this in Germany that are still standing. This became a very popular style. I call it the J Castle. I've never heard specifically what the architectural style was called, but to me it always looked a bit like a J. And there's one much bigger than this, but the same exact design in a city about 2.5 hours south of Delmenhorst in a town called Bad Bentheim. And it is exactly the same castle, but bigger. But that's what the castle looked like. Now, let me get you to the last ruin. So that's without all the pictures and stuff in the way, just to show you what it looked like. In 2006, they were having a celebration. So they put up a bunch of these white sticks to show where the walls all would have been. It was really weird. Showing where the tower, what the main towers and that. Whatever they were trying to sell off, it didn't work to me. The mayor at the time called it a waste of money. But here is the Blue Towers surviving foundation bricks and stones. But it gives you an idea of how thick it was. And then you got to imagine 60 feet high, which is taller than pretty much all these trees around it. But that is all that's remaining, those little stones on the side. And then this is looking over to the moat system around this island. So what happened? What happened to the Delmenhorst Castle? Well, obviously it was destroyed during the 30 Years' War, and the local townspeople who repair their own buildings and homes after the 30 Years' War just free stones. Nobody was guarding the castle. Nobody cared. And so those stones will be found anywhere throughout the region. People just came up with their carts, their wagons, and threw as many stones as they could in and dragged them off and built walls to their farms or new foundations to their homes that were destroyed. So the castle is scattered all throughout some of the old buildings of Delmenhorst and the region around Delmenhorst. Now, that's not the end of the history of this island. Once the castle was destroyed and all the stones, well, the city paid to have the rest of the stones cleared in the 1700s. And in the early 1800s, the city built a hospital. They built a hospital where the castle was. They built this big wooden hospital. And it was a hospital for about 40 years. Then it became a mental institution until 1938. No, 1937. And then its dark history began. Crap, I just had a brain fart. It's what we would call in English, it became a breeding farm. Jean-Ricard, you know about those?
That was, I assume you referred to the Operation Lebensborn.
That's it. Lebensfrauen. Thank you. Yeah. Lebensfrauen. Basically, they had women who were paid or enslaved, and they were to sleep with SS men that passed a certain level of racial purity, and to have babies, and more babies. It became a Lebensraum. I said Lebensraum. That's the other bad Nazi word. Lebensfrauen.
Yeah.
It became a Lebensfrauen site, and
it was basically a program to ensure that the German population would have enough babies when they lost soldiers in the war.
Yeah, just mass production. It was a mass production line for babies to make soldiers for the wars down the road. Yep.
Yeah, but generically correct. babies.
Yeah, genetically, yeah.
They were
Racially
chosen
pure babies.
to be what the Germans considered Aryans.
Yep. Which is absolutely hysterical because Aryans were dark-skinned people that look like people of India today.
Yeah, but not in Himmler's.
No, not to the Nazis. The Aryans were the original white race, but no, Aryans were dark-skinned people of the northern India region. But that's for another class. But yes, it was. So after World War II, they tore it down. They wanted it gone. They, shame or whatever else you want to call it. So
actually, I think they were. It might not have been entirely voluntarily tearing it down, because you had a great denazification by the occupation forces of the Allies.
Yes, although, and again, you got to remember, it's Delmenhorsters telling me this. The city of Delmenhorst tore it down once before the British came in. When the Nazi forces evacuated the city, they claim they tore it down. Whether they're telling the truth or not, I don't know.
That it's just to say it that it's a very what should we say, like a sore skin. It's not a subject they would probably discuss too in depth if you spoke to them on a long term.
Yeah, well, to be honest, they're the people I meet in Germany, especially of the age group 50 to 70, born post-war, they are willing to talk about, if you meet the 80-year-olds, they did nothing, they never liked the Nazis, et cetera, like you're saying. But the generation that came after are very willing to, we were horrible.
I would say it in a bit of another way, because I would say that the persons that are in our age group didn't really, if they are born just immediately after the war, they didn't have a much learning about the war. So they are more in the way that they say, well, we know that we had this conflict in the 40s, and we know that we did some horrible things, but of course we take distance from it, but it's not always that they know what actually took place in their country.
Now, that's interesting that you say that, because you live over there. I mean, you don't live in Germany, but you live bordering Denmark. What I see when I'm in schools is they are heavily told, this is what the Nazis, this is what we did. We hid behind it. We claimed we didn't know. I see it taught very heavily there. And the people 50, my age that I talk to say, when we were in school, we were told what rotten people our parents were, and don't listen to your parents saying they didn't know anything. So I hear a different side. Now, again, maybe it's Germans saying, no, we admit to it. But in Germany, you see reminders of the war everywhere, with Germans saying, we were awful, we were bad. And you compare that to Japan, that doesn't even teach their kids World War II, who still will not acknowledge that they invaded China and murdered 20 million people. But when you go to Germany, there are no World War II memorials. The only memorials to World War II are the Holocaust memorials.
Well,
and we haven't even come to the tripping stones yet.
But like you showed the memorial before with from the different wars.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's also a plaque remembering some of the fallens of some of the battles of.
Oh yes, they have the names. They have plaques and names of the soldiers who died. Although if anybody was listed as SS, then their name is not on there. They have that, but if you go to any city in Germany, you'll see a statue celebrating the Napoleonic Wars. You'll see a statue celebrating World War I. You'll see a statue celebrating the Franco-Prussian War. You'll see a statue celebrating battles or whatever from every war. But World War II, there is nothing. The only things about World War II, the only thing you'll see about World War II are either a plaque with the name of soldiers who died in battle in World War II or a Holocaust memorial. You do not have the big statue with the soldier looking victorious and have you. There's none of that. They do not acknowledge battlefields. In fact, when I toured Berlin for the first time, tour guides are supposed to be banned from even pointing out where Hitler's bunker was because, in fact, all tour guides now are banned from pointing it out because they don't want anybody to know because too many neo-Nazis make it a shrine. They want to go to it. But I had an old German who said it was right over here. The American embassy is built, the new American embassy in Berlin is built very close to where the Holocaust Memorial is. I even know where the access, they still have one access point is. I know where the access point is, and you have to have extremely special permission to go down there now. And they ban 99.9% of it because they don't want anything memorializing or trying to put a good spin on Germany's role in World War II. It's the Holocaust. There's not a city. I will get to it because I know I've been babbling here. This is the school I exchanged with, by the way. This is Max Planck Gymnasium. And I always love to show my students this picture. This is a parking lot. All the kids ride bikes to school or walk to school. There's not even enough parking spaces for the teachers.
What about when your kids were there? I don't know how your kids could they all bike?
Yes.
Could they borrow bikes and follow their hosts on their bikes around so they experience some of the culture of being a biking city instead
yes
of...
if their partners biked, they biked, and yes, they had bikes provided.
Yeah, but having a bike provided doesn't mean that you necessarily know how to ride a bike.
But they're riding with their partners and had to learn the rules. For example, a couple of my students got busted with one of their partners out in the country riding a bike because their bike didn't have a light on it.
Oh, okay, but I was thinking you might have kids in America that doesn't know how to ride a bike.
Right. No, my son was one of those. My son, I taught to ride a bike, and he had a horrible crash with his bike when he was young, and I could not get him to ride back on his bike. And so the last time he rode a bike was like 10 years old, and he would walk everywhere before he'd ride a bike again. And when he went to Germany, he stayed with a family where he had to ride a bike, and the family had to work with him and teach him how to. But no, most of my kids knew how to ride bikes. They have them here. But, that's why I was misunderstanding your question, because the big difference is that Germany has very strict biking laws, where America, not necessarily. You have specific lanes. I mean, I think you have this in Denmark too. You have the walking lane, the biking lane, and the car lane.
Yes.
Yep. You have and if you're walking and you're walking in the biking lane, cling, 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 cling.
Yes.
I'll stay back. Cling, 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 cling. You need to be walking on the foot walker section of the walk, because that section's for the bike.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of rules they're not used to, because in America, they ride on the sidewalks, they ride in the street, they ride facing traffic, they ride with traffic. And in Germany, you have to ride with traffic on the biking sidewalk, unless there's an actual biking lane, but you ride with traffic. In America, they're not used to all those rules, even when they have rules. That was, like I said, my students were riding a bike that didn't have a light on it. In Germany, if you're riding a bike after a certain, as the sun goes down, if you don't have a light on it, you're not allowed to be biking.
No, that's correct.
Yeah. We are Delmenhorst. This city is, I would say, by train about 4 to 5 hours north of Remagen Bridge. Remagen is down south of Cologne, and we are up north near Bremen. And that's about a 5-hour train ride from Bremen to Cologne, maybe 6 hours, depending on which train you take. If you take the bullet, not the bullet train, if you take the ICE, you might be able to do it in 4 hours. But yeah, so yeah, biking and parking lot. And these are just random pictures of my students from different years standing at the Max Planck. I don't have them all, but it's a couple of groups just to show them off. The kids that showed up over the years were with the mayor. This is a little northern section. This is a village called Asparagan, which was made part of Delmenhorst about 40 years ago. It was incorporated into the city of Delmenhorst. But it has a more traditional look. It's a farming village. And actually, Asparagan says we're older than Delmenhorst. Delmenhorst was founded in the 1200s. We go back to the 800s. But the very traditional thatch roof. And these are amazing. Americans need to rediscover thatched roof. You do have to do some maintenance on them. But these things are better insulation and more weatherproof than most of the shingle tiles that we put on roofs in America. The thatched roof, they keep the cool inside and the heat inside, and they keep the moisture in that outside, and they're amazing. Old tech is the best tech sometimes. But yeah, this is just a cool little town. And this church is the oldest church in the region. It dates back, you can see it's what we call Romanesque. Romanesque basically means big and square with small windows. But this is Romanesque, and it is St. Anne's Church. It's been remodeled a few times, so you can see the original stonework from the 800s and then the rebuild stonework after a fire. But the only thing that's cool about this is now this annotation says it's a cannonball from the 30-Year War, but it is not from the 30-Year War. But I'll show a picture of it real quick. It's right up here. There's a cannonball right here. And this was actually during a battle between some soldiers from the Archbishop of Bremen and soldiers of the Duke of Oldenburg. And the Delmenhorster and Oldenburgish troops chased off the Bremen. Bremen brought one cannon, and they shot it, and it landed in the wall and didn't blow up. So that is a 500-year-old cannonball right there. Just a big metal ball. You know, it's not like explosive canister shells we have today. It was just a big metal iron ball, but it's been wedged there since the 1500s. And here again, you can see, to go with what you were talking about, this is in that church of Asparagan, but you'll see it does have a list of the names in the years 1939, 1945. So you can go into a church or you can go to a memorial and you will see names, even those who died. And yes, it tells you where they died. You know, Baltenland, Brandenburg, Pommern, Ostpreußen, Westpreußen, you know, just the generic where they died. You know, it gives you, if it can, it'll give you the date. It's kind of hard to see, but there are dates here when they were born and when they died, killed in action. So yes, they do have that, but what you won't see is statues to soldiers or statues of Panzer tanks and, hey, here's where we fought this great battle and beat the French. You know, you can go to the Ardennes Forest, you know, or the Hürtgen Forest is the more German one, the Hürtgen Forest. And there, you can go visit the battlefield, but they'll say this was a battle here, but there's nothing that celebrates what the Germans did. The only memorials are Holocaust and the people who died. And this is while we're getting a tour of this Asparagan Church. It's a cute little church, very small, but it's also special because it has the sub-branch of the Oldenburg family, the Delmenhorster Wappen, coat of arms, a Wappen, the coat of arms for the Delmenhorst branch of the Oldenburg family. And the last one was Christian II. And this is actually a stone carving that Christian I put on with some of his Wappen and nobility claims there. And then this is the old watermill, which dates to the 14th century. Obviously, that building doesn't, but the watermill and inside of it is. So, so they kind of show you Middle Ages stuff and what it looked like in the 14 and 1500s. Little model there. And they even show you that this became a milling site after World War II. So this was net weight 100 pounds of, I believe this is flour, donated by the people of the United States of America, not to be sold or exchanged, net weight 100 pounds, contract, blah, blah, blah. Use no hooks, from Kraylog Catholic Relief Services to the Deutsche Caritasverband, the German Heart Society. Caritas is caring, heart as in caring for somebody. It's actually a Latin term, not a German word, but the old mill and the millstone goes sign, some stuff carved in. Ag was dat doch in schöne tid, wo ich als Müll not kloppet heft. Nu luft die Augenstufe bei mein Rad ist weg und ich seh gar nicht mehr. And I can probably translate about 2/3 of that, but nu luft die Augenstufe by. The eyes watch as it goes past. Mein Rad, my wheel is gone und ich seh gar nichts mehr, and I see nothing more. I don't know if you could have a good crack at that, Jean Ricard.
No, I also think that it's a very old type German, so I wouldn't try there translating it.
And this is the German. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, and this is the type of German that the Pennsylvania Dutch speak.
Okay.
So Ach is still Ach. What that doch is, doch can mean over there, but it can also be a term, what we call an emphasis word. It has no meaning. It just shows enthusiasm or disgust. It's an emphasis word. Ach, was da doch in schöne Tid. I'm trying to remember what Tid is.
It's a wonderful time.
Is Tid time? So that might be tight as in time, tight as in Zeit.
Yeah.
Okay. Where I as mul, that's mul, mill.
As mill.
No kloppet, still heft is to lift up. Kloppet, no kloppet heft.
Kloppet is the noise that the mill makes.
Okay.
It's clatching,
Okay.
The milling sound.
See, so between you and me, your Danish and my old German studies, we can almost piece it together. Because see, I keep wondering, Tid, if it could have been something else, but where the mill still makes its noise, where it still lifts its noise. Now lift only my eyes, still going past. My wheel is gone, and I see nothing more. Where once I saw my mill working, and I mean, I can loosely translate. Where once my mill worked and chugged and churned away, now it is all gone it's gone past my eyes, and I see nothing more.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you sure that Au is not the name of the stream?
I have always translated as Au as an Augen. I'm pretty sure it's not the stream because the stream is the Delma.
But I read it now the stream Au fließt
Ganz still vorbei goes quietly by.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I could read it that way.
And then that my wheel, my water wheel is gone.
And I see nothing more.
Yeah.
That's why I always translate it as Aug for I, because he then says I see nothing more. But if it's the name of the stream, that would make more sense. New which is now.
Also because the Au is made with a capital A. A-U, Au.
Yeah, well, Aug would also be capitalized too.
Yeah, but the Au, I think it's the stream. I think it's the name of the stream.
Okay, I'll go with you on that.
I'm not sure, but
it makes a lot of sense that way if you think of Au as the stream. I just always, because he says, and now I see nothing more, I always translate that as like Plattdeutsch or Old German Aug, Aug is I, Auge today. But it makes more sense with looked here. Nu noon. Only now look, the got, now that's there. Yeah, the stream still rolls, and my wheel is gone, and I see nothing more. Yeah, I
It's
can go with
also
that.
because it says the løbe, which means running,
Right.
and still forby is quietly past.
Right.
So,
But that's the problem. See, forby can mean, forby means something is moving past you.
Yeah. And then that they mentioned the rod, the
wheel,
water
right?
wheel. Yeah.
Because a bicycle is anything with a wheel, like a bicycle is a rod.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. But no, rod in this case it clearly is the wheel. Und ich sag gar nichts mehr. But yeah, that's where sadly, I'm sure the gentleman that was teaching my students and we took the picture, he probably told them what it meant. I just don't remember. Old sewing machine. Just all the different bits from this mill. And that is the last picture I have. The only thing I didn't have in here, and I don't know why I don't, are the tripping stones. I didn't have any pictures of tripping stones in there, and that's always in. This is something I always show my students when I would tell them about, hey, you're going to go to Delmenhorst and do the exchange program. I'd give them a kind of a visual tour. But how can we do this? Can we bring everybody else up there? Okay, here we go. If you guys want to come on, but that was a little tour of the city of Delmenhorst and the region I've been through. It's I call it my my Deutsches Heimatstadt, my Deutsche Heimatstadt, my German hometown. But the tripping stones, anywhere in Germany, and I don't know if they do this in other countries, but anywhere in Germany where a Jewish family lived that was murdered during the Holocaust, outside their actual residence, they put these little bronze plates, and they call them tripping stones.
Yes.
And it has the name of the person and when they were arrested, and if they have the information on when they died, it'll say there. But if they don't know when they died, it'll just say murdered. Ermordet. So Gilda,
yeah,
Gilda Kleitner, born 1907, sent to Auschwitz 1941, ermordet 1943. So they are specifically designed because so many of the sidewalks in Germany in these regions. Hey, Randall.
Hey, what's happening?
Saw that picture pop up real fast.
Yeah, I was trying to get a shot ready for you here in a little bit.
The tripping stones are just slightly above the other cobblestones on the sidewalk. So, the idea is you'll stub your toe, and like we all do, we go back and look at what we tripped over, and you'll read the little plaque down on the sidewalk. But when we walk through towns, I tell my students, look for them and learn, because again, to me, I've always been impressed is the wrong word, but appreciative that wherever I've gone in Germany, they have Holocaust reminders everywhere, and the kids are taught it in school that I see, that we did this, don't stick your head in the ground. We did this. The worst thing I have seen in Germany was, the newest generation of kids. The last time I did the exchange program in 2016, the kids, you were starting to hear some kids going, man, that's what our grandfathers did. We're sick of hearing about it. I was hearing that from the 15-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, from not all of them, but from a definitely vocal minority, which seems to coincide with the rise of some neo-Nazism, especially in Eastern Germany, who, since the fall of communism, things haven't gone as well because the West was always rich. But, sadly, fascism is rising in many countries. But in Germany, I was always appreciative because in Japan Japan will talk about, due to economic pressures and limitations by the United States, Japan and the United States eventually came into conflict in a war that ended when the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs, cruelly killing 300,000 people in 2 cities. And so we had to surrender. And that's all they mention of the war. Even today, the kids do learn about it through other sources, but in the schools, whether you want to call it the Japanese culture of saving face or whatever, they don't acknowledge the war. They don't acknowledge their invasions and murders of indigenous people through the islands of the Pacific, through Southeast Asia, into China, the massacre of British, Dutch, and American prisoners of war. They don't know anything about it because they don't get it taught to them. And in Germany, when I've sat in their history classes, when I've sat in there, they're told your grandparents did this. That's what I've seen. Okay, you got something for us, Randall? That's actually train related, so I'm not. Because I can put you up solo.
Okay. So what I was going to show you, it's not anywhere as interesting as what Anthony just showed off, but
no, but it's train, which means it's very interesting.
Well, we'll see. If you haven't been following me on Facebook, nobody really knows I have this engine. So I'm going to put it up here. There it is right there. And a lot of people might look at this and think this is one of the U36Cs that I bought, a batch of here a while back. This actually is not a U36C. This is a General Electric C30-7. Decorated for the Santa Fe Railway is number 8076. Now, I looked up photos of this engine, and the way they detail it, it's pretty much spot on with the prototype of this locomotive. Kind of one of the interesting things is it lacks a rooftop air conditioner. Santa Fe started putting these air conditioners on the roof of their locomotives, but this one kind of, strangely enough, likes that. It does have the rooftop beacon, the Leslie 3-chime air horn, and pretty much everything you would associate with a Santa Fe engine. Well, I say it would look like a C36 or a U36C. There's the U36C right there. So I'll kind of scoot that back where you can get a look at both of them.
Right, well, can you turn it around? Can you turn it around so they're both kind of facing the same direction?
Sure.
Yeah, because then I really start to see the similarities.
So it may be a little bit difficult to tell, and I don't know if I can even turn my phone light on or not. See if I can get to pull down.
We multitask, Split Rock. We multitask.
So I'm going to turn the light on. Maybe it'll show up. Well, it says it won't let me do it. So we may just have to live with what we got here. But the grills are a little different on both these engines. I think is probably the only way you can tell the difference in them.
Okay.
But kind of one of the interesting things is GE actually used the U36C body for the -7. And that's so the engine can cool better with this wide radiator. You look here, if I can put stuff up where it don't start falling, but see if this radiator kind of sticks out on the sides here.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of came into effect with these engines to help kind of cool them better, and where they would kind of get better fuel mileage, the engine would run cooler and whatnot. And they decided to go ahead and use that body for the C30-7. And they were, a lot of people often claim that the -8 will often, and I can't talk, Anthony. A lot of people say that the -8 was what put G over the hump with competitor EMD and put them out in front for good. This model here was kind of what put them on the map, where they showed they could compete with EMD. And I'll move this guy out of the way where you can get a better look at. Uh-oh.
Well, no, don't worry about that. That was just me.
Okay.
What's up? Oh, crap.
I thought maybe my phone died or something, but
No,
anyway.
A certain numbskull named me is hitting the wrong buttons.
Oh, no, it's fine, Anthony. You're good. But anyway, just kind of tell you, this was kind of the engine that put G on the map, show them they could compete with EMD. And Burlington Northern really liked these engines, even though this is a Santa Fe model. But Burlington Northern really liked them because they put them on their Powder River Basin coal trains. I remember seeing both the BN and the Santa Fe just after the merger, these units running, and it was quite a show because they would put 5 of them on the point of a coal train, and it was not uncommon to see them paired with SD40-2s as well. And they put on a show. I mean, they were something to see and hear because they had that very distinctive chugging sound when they went by, which was really, really cool. But kind of just on the model part here, this is actually an Atlas model. Is what I've got here. What's kind of interesting about this model, I found this out later. I can't remember who it was mentioned this, but they said that they were powered by Kato motors, or Kato, depending on how you want to pronounce them. And I thought that was kind of, and I thought that was kind of interesting that they had these like this, because I remember seeing them in Model Railroader. Oh gosh, what are we at? 2022 now.
Yeah.
I was in 7th or 8th grade when these came out, so we're talking a good 20 to 25 years ago. So, and as far as I know, Atlas only offered these engines a couple of years, and then they never offered them again.
Interesting. Maybe didn't
why
sell
they
I said maybe they didn't sell well.
I honestly don't know
Right.
why they did that, because everybody I've talked to says they're great running engines. Why? It just kind of baffles me that Atlas just after just couple of years making these, just said we're done, and they were never offered again. So,
wow, that's weird.
And as far as I know,
how rare or what time frame? For example, this livery, this coloring. How many years in reality was that out there? Was this a design that you would have seen for several years, or was it like
this scheme lasted well into the BNSF era?
Okay.
BNSF retired these engines in 2003, and as far as I know, all but a few wore this. All but a few of the Santa Fe engines were still wearing this scheme when they were retired.
Oh, okay.
So they basically never. The only changes they got ditch lights on the front. That was basically all the changes that happened to them. Okay. And it was the same with the BN engines too. Many of those BN engines wore their Cascade green and black scheme from basically the day they rolled out of the factory to the day BNSF took them off the roster.
Okay. Now, re-educate me. What is the class of the Santa Fe in the background there? What is the classification?
This engine?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what's called a C30-7. So basically the engine would be, the C part would be these 3-axle trucks.
Okay.
The 30 would be the 3,000 horsepower this locomotive generates. And then the -7 would, of course, be the -7 series.
Hi, Ian. How are you? Okay. Now, I thought earlier you had referred to it by something else. Is there a model number? And I don't mean the toy model number, but like this is model number, or is that the C30-7?
It would just be called, both BN and Santa Fe call their engines C30-7. Now, there are, depending on what railroad you go to, there are kind of derivatives of that. Conrail actually called their locomotive C30-7As.
Okay.
I think. And I think that was because their engines had some kind of enhancements on them.
So hang on a second. Now, the one that you were lining up to it to show how similar they were. Can you put that one back next to it again?
Sure.
Now, what is the classification? What is the model class of that one?
Okay, this would be a U36C.
Okay,
And
that's a U36C. So you got a C70, a C30-7, and this is a U36C.
Yep, that's correct. This would be basically how it would go would be the U series, which would be the letter U would be for the U series. The 36 would be 3,600 horsepower.
Okay.
And then the C, of course, would be the 3-axle trucks on each end.
Okay.
Designated as a
so
6-axle locomotive. So.
Okay, because see, that's one thing I am just now trying to understand as I watch more American channels. In Germany, to me, it's relatively easy, although Jean Ricard will come on and correct me if I'm wrong. But in Germany, for example, every classification of train has 3 numbers. And the first of the 3 numbers is 0, 1, or 2. 0 steam, 1 electric, 2 diesel.
Right.
Okay. Then the next 2 numbers are the building classification. So you can have a 048, a 148, or a 248. And well, I mean, it's just, but then that classification number told you what job it did. For example, any number 50 or below was primarily passenger service, with lower numbers being small, loads, and bigger numbers being heavier loads. So, right. And then 51 and above was usually freight. So okay. A 152 would mean it's electric, freight, and does light to medium loads. A 185 was electric that did heavy loads, that did heavy hauling.
Right.
And so to me, that was just like, and it in the end, it didn't matter whether it was Siemens or Bombardier or some other company that made it. Bombardier, I'm sorry, I said Bombardier. Bombardier, it didn't matter. In Germany, it got designated with one of these 3 numbers, class 146. For example, I have a lot of class 146s on my layout because class 146 was one of the primary Regiobahn haulers for, the commuter trains. So, and then if you had numbers above that, if you had, like, for example, you'd have a 442. 442 meant it was an electric. 4 meant electric. What do you guys call it? An EMU. And then, like, you'd have a 442, which meant it was electric. And then a 642 meant it was a DMU, a diesel multi-unit. But with American trains and UK trains, I don't see that distinction. I see class 37s in the UK hauling freight. I see class 37s hauling passenger cars. And in America, now it's cool to learn that, like you said, the 30 or the 36 is horsepower. That's cool to know now.
Now the trick is EMD does not do that with their engines.
Okay.
The numbers are not designated with the horsepower. So you would look at a SD70 Ace. That engine cranks out 4,300 horsepower, yet they call it an SD70 because it's SD special duty, aka 6-axle diesel. And the 70 would be for the 70 series. And then AC would be AC traction, and then the lowercase e would actually stand for enhanced. So, Lehigh just hit it.
Oh, hang on.
I was just going to say, Lehigh just hit it right on the head. He said U.S. diesels are very difficult because everyone wanted to be a little bit different. But back in the day, everybody came out, had all these crazy light packages, horn placements. It was nuts back in the day. Nowadays, it's not as bad with the current crop of locomotives, the ES44s, the Tier 4 Gevos, and of course now the later 70 series engines. The engines are a little more I hate to kind of use this term, but cookie cutter, meaning
Yeah.
except for the paint scheme, everything's the same. So, aside from some things like some headlight placements and whatnot, but no, back in the day, these engines, I mean, every railroad had their own kind of unique style because, and even from batch to batch, they would change. So, one batch of Santa Fe diesels would be different from another batch, and you know, they would just kind of change it up every so often. Then as they aged and they got rebuilt, they would either put air conditioners on them, or in this case, put the rooftop beacon on them.
Well, obviously there'll be, certain tech changes like air conditioning units and so forth. But
right.
Because to me, I would say, as much as I love my German trains, like I can put like a class 181 and a class 143, and there are some subtle design differences, but basically they're all kind of cookie cutter. And then they just come in the red, but that's what I know and that's what I like. But as I'm learning to appreciate what you guys do, what Thomas runs, what you show me, either the live pictures you send to me or the model pictures that you either put up.
Well, and even the early I was just in the early ES44s, even they went through some stages where they changed a little bit. When I did the review on the 25th anniversary engines, each one of those engines have very minor differences that kind of makes them unique, and each row number unique in its own way. But
right.
So I mean,
as an outsider, many, like here, when you put those two models together and say they're very similar, I see it, but now I can see the differences. But if like, say, Thomas were to run a locomotive, I saw him running on a short he put up the other day. Was it yesterday? Maybe where that was he did a steam today or yesterday, but a couple of days ago he had this yellow loco going through. I would not have been able to tell you what the difference was between that loco he put up and the two locos here. If you had showed me those two locos separately, like you send in, like you do to me, send me pictures and said, here's this loco and here's this loco, I would have looked at them and go, yeah, they're identical, same loco, right? And then you'd say, but look here, look here, look here. And then I look at the front and I realize the cab is very different, between the two, the windows, the shape, much bigger cab on that BNSF or, the second one there as compared to that Santa Fe. And I'm learning to, I'm trying to learn to see the difference here. So when Americans talk about this stuff, I'm not a complete dunderhead.
I had to cheat, Anthony. I had to get my old phone out because it's still got a light on it. So
gotcha.
I kind of lit it up where you can see the grill openings a little bit. And you can see some differences from the old U36C to the C30.
Right.
But, basically from everything I read, they used the car body for this U36C for the -7.
Okay.
Because of the winged radiators, like I said, cools better, gives the engine better fuel economy, and everything that I read about Burlington Northern really liked these engines. So they.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing that kind of gives it away with C30-7, see that little bulge right there on around the exhaust stack?
Okay.
That also gives it away that's a C30-7. They have this little bulge that sticks out, starts right in front of the exhaust stack and comes back to the radiator section.
Okay.
So that's another kind of giveaway. And as far as I know, I don't know of any that's still being rostered in the U.S. I think a lot of these went to like Brazil and are now running down there.
Right.
Somebody might. Well, I take that back. No, I think Lake Superior and Imshing, if I'm pronouncing the name right, still rosters them.
Okay.
Because they bought a lot of Burlington Northern's U30Cs and I think some of their C30s as well. So that just made me remember that. So, And they're still in Cascade Green of all things. They actually repainted back into the Bronx Northern paint scheme, so they're still out there running around wearing Cascade Green and black.
I'll see if I can come on, show it, but what do I want to do? No, I can't put myself in a timeout. That would just be stupid. But it doesn't let me copy and paste that.
Yeah, Split Right. BN really like their SD40-2s too.
It's going to try to put the invite back up if somebody else wanted to pop up and show up another what. I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't know which bit worked better. I don't know. There's paste. I'll put that up if anybody's got something they want to show or share, and because we're back up to 10 people here, which is kind of cool. We're talking trains too. Because I don't like, something I've had since childhood is I don't like sitting among a group of people and listening to them discuss things that I have an interest in, but I have no idea what they're talking about. And since I'm hanging around more and more American sites, I feel like I should try to learn a little bit more about American trains. And you do a great job talking to me because you talk to me very clearly. Your emails to me, your messages to me, your the pictures when you send it, and then when I watch your videos, you're so very clear, and you obviously know it, and I love that. I mean, Thomas, when he's talking about this stuff, does the same. Very well explained, very clear what's going on. There are sometimes I watch guys and they just seem to expect you to know. And if it's like that in any hobby, you got people that don't have time for the idiots. I guess my career has always been about making time for idiots. So I like it when somebody makes time for me.
I constantly like learning about these engines like you. I mean, you're the professor when it comes to all things German trains, because I know absolutely nothing about them. So,
May I ask a question about the American locomotives there?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Are they electromotive? Do they have a generator that makes electric motors do the running, or do they have the? Okay.
So essentially, the diesel engine, it's sort of like its own. Think of it kind of like as a. How do I want to put
power
this?
Plant.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a power plant on wheels. Basically,
Yes.
what the diesel engine does, it turns a generator, which then sends electricity down to individual traction motors on the locomotive, and that's how it gets its power to move.
Yeah,
So,
because in Denmark, when we had diesel locomotives, they were built on license by the Swedish company NOHAB, and they were built on license from General Motors. So the diesels we have in Denmark is very similar to the old F7s, the 40s diesel locomotives from General Motors or General Motors Electromotive Division, if it means something to you, Randall.
okay, yeah.
And they also run diesel electrics, whereas a lot of the German locomotives, they are diesel hydraulics.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard those diesel hydraulics. I'm trying to remember the name of that one, because they restored the one Southern Pacific had here not too long ago. The am I pronouncing that right? Cross Mafia or
Kraus Mafia? Yes, that's
yeah. I saw where they had restored a Southern Pacific version of that engine.
Yes.
That's one of the wildest looking engines I ever seen. And that was, I think, a diesel hydraulic driven locomotive.
Yeah. How did they multiple traction the engines? How many of those types could they run together?
So Santa Fe typically ran their trains. I believe all the videos I've seen of these engines operating, they typically ran them in a 4 to 5 locomotive consist. Now there are exceptions where they run them where they would run more than that. Santa Fe was also an early user of radio control technology,
Okay.
where sort of like the DPUs they have now, where they could place locomotives in the middle of the train and they could be operated by the head end.
Yes.
So Santa Fe was kind of an early user of that. So it was not uncommon to actually get more than 5 engines on there. I've heard stories like on Tehachapi Loop, there would be trains with as many as 20 locomotives on a single train. So,
that to a European, that sounds kind of crazy.
yeah, it was absolute madness back in those days. Burlington Northern, my day, their coal trains had 10 engines on them.
Okay.
5 on the point, and then I think another 5 on the rear. They would either have 9 or 10 engines at one point on their coal trains back in the day in the early 90s. Now, by the time the SD70 Max came along, or when those locomotives came along, that number went from like 9 or 10 down to 3. So, because the AC traction, the locomotives could grip the rails so much better. Plus, those engines had 4,000 horsepower versus 3,000 for the C30s. And that combination, I mean, was just a win-win because you basically cut your locomotive count by a third. Okay.
Now, see, in this area, just to go back to one thing you guys were just talking about, like as a person in Toledo, Ohio, which has a lot of freight that goes through, I think the most locomotives we ever counted on a train was 9. I think we counted 9 pulling, because I remember sitting there and Joyce and the kids were like, how many locomotives? And I was like, 1, 2. And I'm like, we're going to be here a while, aren't we? Sorry, just thought I'd share that.
No, that's fine, Anthony. Because since you brought that up, I have seen where they would put like these double empty coal trains together. It's basically 2 trains, one to run together as one. And those trains would operate with somewhere around, probably 10, 11 locomotives, because you would have 2 on it. The way they actually did it, they had 2 on the point, 5 in the middle, I think, and then 2 more on the rear. So let's see, 4. So that'd actually be 9 engines. I'm kind of messing up, but yeah, but it'd be like 200 and, let's see, average. Well, it'd be almost 300 cars, because I think the average coal train's about 145 to 150 cars.
Yeah,
so,
but the when we see Split Rock's comment on the bottom of the screen,
yeah,
it kind of makes sense when you that your trains are so long, and that's one of the limitations in Europe, is that the railway simply doesn't allow that long trains, so we don't need to run as many locomotives in a train set, and that's the difference between European trains I think the heaviest freight train in Denmark is about maybe 1,000 tons, metric tons, and then, well, you're basically within the effect of one locomotive.
Right, and Split Rock just hit on something right there, where if you said if a train has more than 4, they are just moving power. They won't all be working pulling. That's a great point, Split Rock, because of course, you work for Union Pacific, and I'm out here on BNSF, and BNSF does this all the time. When they would run their empty coal trains, they usually had them running 1-to-1, even though if you look at the train, they would have 5 or 6 engines on there. Yet only one would be running on the point, one would be running on the rear, and then the rest would be what we would call isolated, meaning they're basically shut down. They're just basically along for the ride.
Okay. First of all, let me just say hi to Crooked River and Eastern Railroad. Welcome in.
Hey, Dave.
And then, so Thomas or Randall? Randall, you're on. Thomas can type. So if you say more than 4, the others aren't working. They're, like you said, shut down. So why have them on? Is it multiple reasons? Like you're gonna these 5 or these, we're gonna be dropping a couple off along the route because they're gonna be needed somewhere else, and we're just moving them with the train, basically? Or is it we're gonna be using, so we're gonna run these 2 for a while, and then these 2 in this section will be the power? So why put 9 if only 4 are really going to be used at most? Is it?
So I'm just speaking from BNSF. Split Rock can tell me what UP basically does with their extra locomotives. BNSF notoriously puts extra locomotives on its coal trains to either be dropped off at certain locations.
Okay.
And basically it's like a power move, except it's part of an actual train.
Mm-hmm.
I
want to see why that's notorious. I mean, that sounds like a logical thing. Just attach it as part of a train.
But BNSF will often put extra locomotives on there, and then they'll tell the crew, okay, we're going to need you set this engine out at, let's say, the sand plant down at Black Rock. Okay, just for an example, or Valley Stone.
Okay.
They'll tell the crew, okay, here's the engine you're setting out. They'll give them the road numbers or road number.
Okay.
To set out. And a lot of times too, a train will stall on the hill, and they'll tell the crew, okay, you'll have to yank this engine off and put it on the train that's stalled to help get it over the hill. So they actually did that when I was working the extra yard van. They had a train stall at the north end of Thayer, and they made them yank a locomotive off of a coal train and stick on the rear of the manifest train that was stalled, so they can make it over the hill. Their DP had died, was what had happened. So, and I've had another story told to me, and actually this happened with a crew I took last night. See, was it last night or night before last? But anyway, I took a crew down to Drace, Arkansas, and their train, both their lead motors shut down while they was coming out of the yard, while they was coming out of Memphis. They said they were pulling, they were running notch 8, and said it just out of the blue, said both motors just died on the head end. So I don't know how they managed to get on there. I think one of them said they used the mid-train DPs to basically shove them into the siding, and they eventually got the lead motors fired back up. But yeah, that's kind of wild. I don't know if I've ever heard a story where both lead motors had shut down while they was going down the tracks in Run 8. But
yeah, see, Split Rock just said something that this is great knowledge for me. And this is where you guys that actually work in the industry, going back here, he talks about, unlike model railroads, there are more eastbound than westbound trains. And I assume that's because more stuff comes into the West Coast ports than to the East Coast ports because of China and all the stuff made in Asia. And so that now makes sense. Okay. You get so many trains going. So if my math and my logarithms are correct, then you're more likely to see multiple locomotive units heading back west because so many are going east. So you might see 2 locos pulling a train east, but you might see 3 or 4 going back west because they're taking them back.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, this is the stuff I love to figure out.
But you should remember, Anthony, that the trains going east, it's not only the locomotives they have to get back to the West Coast, they also have to get the empty cars back to the West Coast.
Right.
So essentially, the amount of trains or the amount of cars and locomotives going in both directions should be more or less the same. Unless you keep on building new cars at the one side and scrapping the.
Well, Thomas, you heard that, so maybe you can comment on that. My philosophy would be that when you're pulling full stuff going west, because of weight, you're going to have more trains. Where when the cars are empty going back east, you can string them together in one train.
Right. Because see,
yeah, of course.
So you would actually have fewer actual trains because 2 trains would go west to east full, and then coming back west, it would be 1 train empty.
Yeah, but
that's how I would simplify it.
That's correct, but the cars and the locomotives would be the same. You can put them together because of the weight, but it would be the same amount of cars and locomotives going both directions.
Right, but he was talking about there's more traffic going west to east, and I interpret that as number of different trains. So what happens is, again, so what I'm looking at is why a train would have 4, 5, or 6 locomotives on it. Really, in some ways, it's like you had 2, 3 locomotive trains going west to east, but 1 train with 6 going back.
Okay, yes. And here's another reason why you could have a train with 5 or 6 locomotives. And Thomas might could jump in here on this too. BNSF has what they call Z trains, which are high priority, time sensitive freights. Mainly, you see them as double stack container trains, and they'll have some spine cars mixed in with trailers or single level containers on them. But those trains will sometimes have anywhere from 4 to 6 engines on there. Not really because of a power move or anything like that. They're trying to get straight up speed out of their trains. The Z trains are meant to basically go 70 miles an hour and get like your Sony flat screen TVs there in a heap big hurry. So,
right. Because see this, I'm going to steer this back towards something Thomas asked earlier about the nationalization of the rails. And again, every country is different. So Jean Ricard can talk about the Danish train system. But in Germany, the federal government regulates all the trains. All high-speed traffic is owned and run by the government, the Deutsche Bahn, the federal agency. All traffic is regulated by the government, but high-speed traffic is owned and operated by the federal government. And then commuter traffic is split between the government-owned commuter traffic, the Regiobahns, which are always red, Although in some areas they're allowed to paint them different things. And then all the private companies, which always have different colors. You know, I've got like Alex and
Metronome.
Metronome. Yeah, you like that metronome today. Alex the Metronome, Eric's Arrivas, which I think are out of Germany now. Blah 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 blah. Mittelrheinbahn, and yeah, you have all these smaller companies that have, but then also priority is given to passenger traffic. In America, it's the exact opposite. Priority is given to freight. And the German government owns every inch of rail in Germany. And so the government regulates. So if there's a conflict in schedules, the commuter train gets priority. The passenger train gets priority. But as Jean Ricard was talking about, freight trains are smaller overall compared to American freight trains. And I don't know, Jean Ricard, have you ever visited the United States?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have been there back in the 80s.
Okay.
And I was there in 81 and 85.
Okay. Now, so I don't know if you had this. I'll flip it my way, and then maybe you can comment on your way coming the other way. I was not into trains, but the first thing I noticed when I saw freight trains in Germany was like, wow, they're shorter, because you had already mentioned that. They're shorter because, we're watching freight trains go by. And yes, I will see freight trains going at high speed. Like, some freight trains will not stop at certain towns, like at Delmenhorst. They might stop in Bremen, which is a big city and a port city and a manufacturing site. But they will fly through, and you'll get a warning saying stand back, and the freight trains come flying through, and I'm talking 75, 80, 90 miles an hour. They'll go through the Delmenhorst city center at the train station, just whizzing through. And I was just amazed at how fast they could move compared to what I see the freight moving through Toledo, because Toledo is a big urban area. And Toledo even has it's different in different states, but like in our area, a road cannot be blocked for longer than 10 minutes by a train. You have to free that car traffic. But otherwise, when I went to Germany, I was like, wow, these are short compared to American freight. So did you maybe have sort of an eye opener? Did you see American freight trains and go, wow, those are a lot longer than a European?
Yeah, I have seen long freight trains. I have also seen what I assume you would call branch lines with shorter trains, and I haven't particularly gone train hunting in the United States, even though I was into trains already back in the 80s. In that way, I have seen different type of trains and long trains as well. But I think that the really big difference between European trains and the American trains is that you have it seems like or your train system is built for the purpose of freight hauling, whereas in Europe it's just as much for passengers still that they run trains in most of Europe. Not saying that they don't run freight trains, because they do run freight trains, but it's just another way of thinking. For example, also in the United States, you have the double stack container trains. That's something that you wouldn't see anywhere in Europe, because the profile simply doesn't allow for the double stack trains. So that's very impressive for a European to see those double stack trains coming when we see a video of it.
Yeah, because I see double stacks in the UK at times when guys like Leslie Gilpin are rail fanning in England. I will see double stacks, but yeah, I never saw a double stack in Germany.
No, I'm amazed they can handle it in the in the United Kingdom, because they do even have a smaller profile on most of the rails over there.
Yeah, and I assume that they just can do it within certain areas, because there's so many of those old bridges and everything where if you double stacked it would crash there. But of course we have that in America where semi trucks ignore the warning and try to drive through a bridge that is lower than they thought. But
what a beautiful layout you're showing there, Randall.
Yeah, what I'm showing you is this is what basically is the modern day. This is the SD70 that I was telling you about right here. This particular one is a UP specialty paint scheme. Thomas probably knows this engine pretty well. This is number 1111, the Powered by Our People 78s. But what I was going to show you is you can see how large the radiator section is on this engine compared to even the C30. You look at the two radiator sections. And this is basically so that engine can meet this engine, meaning can meet the tier 2, tier 3 emission standards. So they put basically the SD90 Max radiator section on here so the 710 engine can run cooler, and therefore it uses less fuel, puts out less emissions. And I think they also did some other enhancements to the prime mover.
Cool. That's cool. See, I love seeing this. And let me go ahead and just bring us all back up again real quick. But yeah, I want to let everybody see that too. That's just really cool. I love this stuff. And I don't have one really, really handy, do I?
And before you do that, Anthony, I'm going to show you this. You see this little bracket that sticks out here on the back?
Yep.
That is actually for another set of air horns that these engines originally were supposed to have on them. The 78 was supposed to have had 2 sets of air horns on it. It was supposed to have this set, and then I think it was supposed to have like a 2 or 3 chime air horn put on the back, so that when the engine's moving long hood forward, they would use the horns on the back for, signaling at the grade crossings and whatnot. But that kind of went away pretty quick, and they were never attached to the locomotive. Eventually, this bracket on later runs is gone off this engine. So I thought that was kind of a neat little feature with these early Aces that they had that.
No, I just think that's a cool looking loco, and I like that, because this leads me to another question for you and Thomas, and then Jean Ricard can throw in his ideas if we're not keeping him awake too long. This is a class 101. Okay, this is a BR 101 Deutsche Bahn, and it's in the Verkehrsrot, the traffic red. This is a standard German locomotive. It's 1, which means it's electric, like the pantographs don't give it away, and it's 01, which means it's high. It's a high speed passenger. 101s are high speed locomotives, but 90% of the 101s you will see are this color. They all look like this. And this is a Märklin, and the chassis and everything. And this is an old one. This is the one I bought used. I got for my birthday used, and it had some issues, which I actually, my first ever repair, where I took it apart myself and tried to fix it, and apparently succeeded. But anyhow, the point I want to make is, so there's the standard. But every now and then, Deutsche Bahn will do this. They will take one of those 101s, and this can be done as a vinyl applique. And this is in reality. These run in reality. And they advertise. And it might be a candy bar. It might be a celebration of a certain city. If you pay Deutsche Bahn the money, they advertise it on their locomotives. So like some of you have seen my Mozart or my Beethoven locomotive with the creepy Beethoven face going past and so forth. And my question is, now I've seen some beautiful liveries with advertising, but usually like it's BNSF advertising BNSF. Like,
Right.
you know, that locomotive you were just showing was powered by our people. You know, are there American locomotives that are, you know, where Snickers has bought it and is advertising Snickers, or you know, because this is something. And one other thought here is the German model rail community. There are people that hate this. They don't like the advert locomotives. They don't like them. It's like, it's not how it should look. You know, they don't want the paid advertisement. But I mean, I have seen most box cars advertise what they're carrying. But again, in America, in Germany, you will see where companies will buy advertisements and stick them on the trains, you know, insurance, government, you know, take the 1776 out of it. You know, there's so many beautiful 1776 locomotives. I wish I'd been into trains back then. Those were really cool. I saw HO set at that Toledo Toy Show last month, back in March, and somebody asked about it. It had a GG1 in that bicentennial. But anyhow, are there commercial advert locomotives that aren't advertising their own company? So that's my question.
I think I saw one time Amtrak. Well, it wasn't Amtrak. I saw a passenger locomotive that looked like it had advertisements on the side of it. I remember looking at a photo of it. But you was bringing up that 1776. This is about the closest thing I have to what they offer. This is a Tyco C420.
There's a name you don't hear anymore.
Yeah. So, and
That's
unfortunately, this guy
New
here doesn't
Haven.
run. Very pretty engine.
It is. That's a cool. Was there ever a time anybody, maybe I need older guys, because my first train set was a Tyco. Okay, it was a Tyco Santa Fe Super Chief kit. It had a flatbed trailer hauling 2 Baby Ruth candy bar semi truck trailers. It had a box car advertising Santa Fe, and it had a caboose, and there was one other car with it. But did anybody, I mean, was there a time where Tyco was considered, like with model trains, because they made everything from video games, was there a time where Tyco models were considered quality?
Unfortunately, Tyco's mechanical part of their locomotives were not that great. They were prone to their gears cracking, I think, over time, because I've heard SMT Mainline mention this quite a bit, where the gears would crack over the time. I think some of them had like nylon gears in them. Yeah. Just some of their drives just overall were not very reliable. I don't know what kind this one has. I would assume it's a power tour, what they called them back in the day, but they were not what you would say real great engines. What Tyco was really good at was putting all these wild schemes on their locomotives. I remember seeing one, I think it was on James Wright, aka JLW II 2000. He did an April Fool's video where he reviewed a Tyco engine, and it was a Burlington Northern E7 that had this wild looking, you know, almost neon green and silver paint scheme on it. And I had never seen one like it before. It was quite honestly one of the wildest looking engines I had ever seen. It was kind of one of those, I guess you want to call it one of those psychedelic Wonderland engines, if you want to call it that. But
If I may come with a comment on the question that Anthony asked about advertising on locomotives, I wouldn't call it advertising, but I have seen, for example, that when the former president Bush was his casket was brought by train, they had painted a locomotive in honor of him.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those. I've seen honoring the military, but I always see that as slightly different. I've seen the honoring the military. All the guys in Canada were just excited about this multiple release of these locomotives in different schemes, including one that saluted the Army and one that saluted the Navy.
And they had Air Force One too.
Oh, and the Air Force one, right? And I remember the Canadian guys being all excited about those. So I see that, but I just the straight out advertising, because Europeans, I keep waiting for sports in America to do this. If you watch world soccer, football, or any sport, the uniforms have ads from insurance companies, betting houses, everything. They're walking commercials while they play, and America has never gone to that.
Starting to see it in the NBA too.
Yeah, and are we starting to see it in the NBA? Because I haven't watched an NBA game in years.
It's not really that noticeable. It's like little tiny patches on their uniforms, but they do have some kind of sponsor type things on there.
Okay. Now,
actually, Anthony, when you say this about sports, what comes to mind for me is that I actually think that they painted a couple of diesels with the Olympic mascot in '84.
They did in 2002. UP did a couple of SD70Ms in the Olympic paint scheme.
Yeah.
If Thomas is still there, he could probably tell you what road number they were. So,
and again, at the risk of being obstinate, I will still divide between like some patriotic or memorial thing versus just straight up advertising, where you're advertising, where it's a company advertising their electronics or what have you. And I don't know. I just wonder, because I do know in the German community, there are guys that hate it. That when this locomotive came out, and I'll go back to my screen real fast again, because again, this is just my different mentality. I think this is gorgeous. This is a million times cooler looking, and I would buy this before I would buy this. Eye candy, I know. They're both 101s. They're both the same locomotive. In fact, technically, I don't know if this will show up. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. I will try to get that up there. Can you focus? It's the same running number.
Yes.
101003-2. It's the same running number. It's their standard 101 running number. I've actually got another one that Merklin paid to advertise. It is in need of repair. It's the one locomotive that I need to fix that I can't fix, and I still haven't sent it off 8 months. It hasn't been seen on my layout in almost a year because it has been sitting in a box waiting to be shipped off and get fixed, and I just completely forget about it until I think about it now. But yeah, it would be very cool, I think, to see that. And again, I was teasing with Split Rock here because he was talking about who wants to see a Hershey's chocolate locomotive, and who knows, some kid might see and go, hey, that's cool, and wants it for Christmas. And going back to the Tyco business, I just remember and again, I never got into trains, but long after I had moved beyond trains, I remember in the mid 70s and late 70s, Tyco was clearly desperate, because do you guys remember, and if you're much older than me, maybe you paid no attention to it, but if you're a little bit younger than me, I was hitting my teens in the late 70s. Tyco started making those space age trains, these rocket locomotives that went up the side of your wall and came down. It was like they were
I remember those.
they made all these space trains and, you know, trying to catch model trains into the sci-fi world, and it clearly didn't work because Tycho died. And I don't know, would they've been smarter just to stick with trains, or if it was just a doomed world anyhow, because, you know, we all talk about how model trains is a dying hobby at times, but it's not dying, it's evolving. It might be a little withdrawn, but there are more companies today making model trains than 30 years ago.
Right.
So there must be a business there. It's not dying. It's expensive, but even then it's not expensive if you want to do cheap. It's expensive to me because what gets me into model trains, other than actually finally experiencing trains, was the eye candy and the other candy, that decoder inside that gives this thing 25 functions, the sounds, the lights and all that. And there are plenty of guys who don't need it. And, you know, I would never judge them, because I look at those guys and watch their trains and I go, cool, because now I respect it. I don't think I was ever disrespectful to model trains. I just wasn't into them. It's not for me. I don't get it. Now I get it. And when I watch guys like, you know, when I watch Jason, the train freak, with Aaron, and yes, Aaron's hit a phase where he's not into the trains right now, which is going to come. I have a lot of great memories of hobbies my kids and I shared together. But now, because I'm into model trains, I miss that. And that's why I'm sitting here waiting for my grandson. Oh, this kid's going to be brainwashed. Oh, this kid's being brainwashed. You will love trains. You will love trains. You will love trains. So that Opa's got somebody to share it with. But
the really important thing to do then, when you want to brainwash him, is to let him allow him to play with the trains.
Oh yeah.
So that you are not going to say, this is Opa's trains, you know, and you can come and watch, but it's Opa's trains. I think really that's some of the problems that has been in this community of train lovers, is that this is far too pricey for a kid to play with. They should be allowed to play with the trains.
Yeah, and the thing is, you give him this and let him go crazy. And if he fries this out, I'll buy another one. Now, do I want to give him my $900 Railjet and let him throw it across the room? Hell no. You know, okay, let's be realistic. But I agree, because I preach the same thing. Kids at train shows, kids, let them touch it. I have locomotives that will be Cayenne's locomotives that are big, heavy. This is yours. Play with it. And yeah, Opa will have some. Cayenne will have some. But Cayenne will be allowed to drive all of Opa's trains for sure. But they've got to be allowed to touch them. And go ahead.
And can I throw this out here too, Anthony? Back, what was it? 15 years ago or so, Model Power came out with this really cool set they called the Metal Train. And basically what it was basically locomotives, you know. I'll show you kind of a similar one, but this is an Athermol, but Model Power made it too. Basically an engine like this, only the body and everything was made of metal.
Okay. Oh, back that up so we can get it in frame.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So basically it was kind of like an engine like this Athermol and F unit, except instead of plastic like this one is, the entire body was made of metal. On the Model Power
type?
What's that?
What do you call the type of train there you show, Randall?
Okay, this one here is an Atherm Blue Box engine from back in the...
Yeah, but
what's the model?
Type of locomotive?
Oh, okay. So this would be like a F7.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I can see that now.
F7. So...
Santa Fe
very
Super
much
T.
like the no-hubs we had in Denmark.
Right.
Right.
So basically, the Model Power version, the entire body and everything was made of metal. And that they were kind of aiming that set towards younger kids, but either they didn't sell well at the time or something. And this is kind of where I kind of my thoughts on it. I think Model Power was a little bit ahead of their time when they came out with this, because the hobby is not in the was not in the same position then as it is now, with a
True.
lot more new blood being getting into the hobby. But those were extremely tough engines. I never owned any, but I've always read articles and people's always said that they were tough, that little kids could get a hold of them and handle them. And I think that's kind of where we need to head back to kind of get younger kids back into the hobby again,
Well,
is to kind of build some of these sets.
well, let
That
me ask,
go ahead.
okay, let me ask all the American modelers here. You know, for example, American has 3 stages of model trains. They have what's called My World, which is hard plastic, battery operated, but it runs on American style track, but all plastic, not the metal bits. But that is for the 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. And then they have what's called the startup, which are cheap, inexpensive locomotives. And when I say cheap, I mean inexpensive, not low quality, but they don't have all the functions, the high digital end. But again, they're durable, but they're designed for beginners, whether you're a 8-year-old or a 48-year-old. It's designed, if you want to get into the hobby, if you want to put your toes into the water, you get a lot of track, you can get a controller or not with it. And again, and then if you're ready, you step into the full Markland world. And even then, the Markland world has different price points for locomotives. And just in the HO world, for example, that, you know, like you can get a 101 for $200 that has a basic decoder and like 6 functions, or you can spend $300 and get one that has the decoder and 26 functions on the decoder. And I don't know the world enough. Like, well, MTH is gone. Aethern, what do they have? Do they have, like, I hear Aethern Blue Box. Like, is there, like, do they have a good level and the deluxe level, or do they have a, hey, here's a basic for you to learn and mess around with?
Okay, so I'll kind of guide you through this a little bit here, Anthony. The Aethern Blue Box, or what was the Blue Box, is now what's called the Aethern Roundhouse line. It's basically the same, almost the same tooling. I think they have upgraded it some with some of these engines, but now they have the 21-pin connectors, LED headlights in the front, and but other than that, they're pretty much the same as these guys right here, just with the mechanics upgraded. So the 70 Ace I showed you a little bit ago, and I'll bring it back. This is the Aethern Genesis line.
Okay.
So this is basically your super detailed, high quality, you know, Tsunami 2, you know, it has the whole works, the piping that runs underneath here. And actually, just a word of the wise, this locomotive has actually got upgraded to a Genesis 2.0 that's going to be coming out sometime this summer. So if you think this engine's detailed, my goodness, wait till you see the Genesis 2.0 version of this engine, because if it's like they're advertising, it's really going to be something. So, but this basically has all your road specific and road number specific details, and the same with the Scale Trains rivet counter back here too. You know,
is that what they call it? Is that the name of the line? Scale?
That is the name of the line, the rivet counter line.
I like that. I didn't know that.
And
the next level above that is uptight.
No, the next level above that's museum quality.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's their maximum. It's got everything you can think of and probably then some. That's where their big blow turbines at, and their SDL 39.
I'm waiting for the company to come up with anal retentive asshole line. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's getting kind of crazy, because with Aethern scale trains, it's like, okay, you got the rivet counter line, but now if that's not enough for you, we have they have the museum quality line, and now with Athearn, if the Genesis is not enough for you, they have the Genesis 2.0 line.
Right. Because
So
the German company Pico originally had hobby, expert, and collector. Hobby, expert, they had 3 levels of models. Hobby was your introductory El Cheapo, usually didn't even have a decoder, or just headlight functions, whatever. Might be analog, might be digital, but if it was digital, it had the lowest end decoder. And then collector was the highest level. That was the supreme. Now, some companies like Brava, all they make is like highest level, most detailed, museum quality. Their locos, you don't buy a Brava locomotive for your 8-year-old.
right, and like I said, it's crazy to think about it now. 20 years ago, when you went to a hobby shop, you didn't have like 5 different versions of the same brand of locomotive. You basically walked into a hobby shop, and it was basically okay if it was a Atlas engine, no matter how much detail on it, was still just an Atlas engine.
Yeah.
And,
well, the thing is, and that's a whole nother topic that I'd be loath to start now, because I'm really going to have to shut this down in a few minutes. Joyce is already giving the stink eye from the stairs. Is the 80s. When we talk about we talk about how all those years ago, all these train companies, and the 80s killed basically the toy industry, except for action figures.
right.
You go through a who's who of all the great American toy companies, because Marx made toys and they made model trains. Tyco made electric football. There were Coleco electric football and electric trains, and Coleco Vision video games, and blah, 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 blah.
Like May racing sets.
Right. And go back, because I used to be in the toy collecting business, so I knew the toy industry back in the 80s and 90s. I was a toy collector. I used to buy old electric footballs, fix them up, and resell them in that, because I loved electric football. Electric football was the toy when I was a kid. That was the toy. Electric trains, no, but electric football, those guys vibrating around, didn't matter. That was cool. That was football, and it was electric. And if you couldn't get your buddies or the weather was bad, you got your buddies over and you played electric football. This is before video games. But anyhow, go back and look how many toy companies died or got absorbed in the 80s. Mego, Coleco, Tyco, all these companies. It wasn't just the train. It was the price of plastic because of the oil crisis of the 70s. The price of plastic went through the roof. G.I. Joes went from those foot tall to this size.
Right.
Barbie dolls took a huge hit with Mattel. Just the toy, the anything that was plastic or metal, those companies died. The number of toy companies that died in the early to mid 80s, it was, along with a lot of other corporations and other industries, but certain industries started to boom at that time. You had the electronics industry was really starting to come in, and the new video game technology was coming in at that time. And computers went from being very expensive to starting to become household price worthy. TVs suddenly started getting better, stereo equipment stuff. But the toy industry just took a big nuclear explosion in the 80s in terms of how many companies, especially American companies, died. Walmart killed Schwinn bikes. Not Schwinn. Who was it? Huffy bikes. I'm sorry, I said Schwinn. Schwinn's slower. Huffy bikes were one of the biggest selling bike companies, and Walmart killed them because Huffy was made in America. But Walmart was the biggest distributor bike selling store, even over Toys R Us. And Huffy said, why aren't you selling our bikes? Well, we need a bike that's $79. We refuse to sell bikes that are more than $79. And Huffy's were $89, $99, $129, and so forth, even back in the 90s. And so Huffy started selling their, created lower end bikes that they sold through Walmart. Well, it was hurting their business, so they closed their American factories and they moved to China and started using low-grade Chinese metal, because all Chinese metal is low-grade. Sorry, I hope that doesn't sound politically incorrect, but it's true. You know, 90% of the screws you buy at a store now are made in China, and they're crap. You try to screw them in, 2 screws and 2 twists, and they've stripped already. It is such low-grade metal. And my guys in the big metal industry complain about when they get Chinese metal imported to them. But anyhow, but so Huffy bikes were suddenly $69 at Walmart, but they fell apart 3 weeks after you bought them. So people stopped buying Huffy, and Huffy buried. And that kind of was repeated en masse in the 80s. Now, the Walmart and Huffy bit happened in the 90s, but that's kind of what happened. It just, the toy industry in general, Ohio Art, Mark's Toys. Remember all those plastic soldiers and metal
Yep.
metal forts and battle kits? Oh my God, those were the coolest Christmas presents to me as a kid. The World War II Battle of Iwo Jima set, you know, all these tanks and soldiers, and in this big box by Mark's Toys, the Fort Apache play set, you know, and they all disappeared. And that's what those companies made their living on. And Tyco with the model trains and race cars. I mean, they did radio controlled cars, slot cars, and they just all died. All right, Split Rock Care. Yeah, I'm going to have to start shutting this down. Because
and back when I was a kid too, we had, you know, the toys I had growing up was like from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Ghostbusters animated series. You know, I remember being in school one time and a kid brought his Molly Ecto 1 to school with him.
I remember my younger nieces and nephews getting those in the 80s. By the 80s, I was a high school, college guy. And, but like as a kid, I wanted a G.I. Joe, the Bigfoot tall, the 12-inch G.I. Joe. And I finally got a couple, but oh my God, my dad, look at my son playing with dolls. Oh my God. But I love G.I. Joe, man. It was cool. It was an action figure. I'm playing war with him, you know. But oh, my dad, no. Race cars, toy trains. My dad, if it moved fast, my dad had so many slot car sets. I love getting those slot cars out too, but oh goodness. If you crashed that car, you got to learn to slow down driving around. My dad took any fun toy and made it a misery. You know, going around the corners, going fast, and you would Tokyo drift and wipe out on the curves. And my dad would just get so pissed at you. Don't you know you got to slow down in the curves? I was like, no, I didn't, Dad. Can we just race? And besides, it was kind of cool when the car spun out and flew off the track like that. My friends and I, we would get those Tyco slot cars and go as fast as we could to see how far they would fly off the track.
So, I mean, you know, you was talking about model train companies making other things besides trains. These are made by Lionel.
Are they? Oh,
yes.
Interesting. Cool.
These are the well, I assume they're called the Camping World Truck Series now, but these are actually made by Lionel. In fact, I think.
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, right there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but
now let me enlarge it here.
Right there, you can see it says "Phil Focus." Come on,
focus.
I got to focus just for a brief second there.
And maybe put your whole hand behind it if you can. Oh, it almost did. Darn you! Almost did.
There it went.
There we go.
Right there, Lionel Racing.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, that's cool.
So, I mean, that just goes to show you they're out there making other things besides trains.
I only know Lionel for trains. See, that is cool to show me that. I only knew Lionel for trains.
And they've just started doing this, I think, recently, in the past couple of years.
I remember Hot Wheels, which I think was owned by Mattel, but I remember Hot Wheels making slot cars briefly, trying to get on the slot car market. And that didn't go well for them. But yeah. You know, a great show would be somebody to do a whole show, like maybe Sidetrack Sunday, do a show on how trains, how the train, keep it model train related, or maybe I'll try to do a show on that. I just would have to do a lot of research. How model trains at times kind of lost their identity just to try to stay current and attract, like the space age trains, the space age train kits, or like England, what is it? The steampunk. There's several companies that now make steampunk.
Don't mention steampunk. That's so horrible.
But there are people I know even here right now that like steampunk, but
there's the HO versions.
Yeah. So the steampunk, but again, that was something that seemed current, and a couple of companies started making steampunk based model trains. It's one thing like Harry Potter, even Maryland made a Harry Potter set because the Harry Potter train, it made sense. But, the idea of even some company got a Star Wars deal, and I'm going to have to Google this because I might be mixing metaphors here. But somebody made a Star Wars train set. I seem to remember.
I think I remember that, Anthony. I think I've seen that somewhere. I know they made a Scooby-Doo train set.
Yeah,
Lionel did.
So we should do that. We gotta come up and on somebody's feed. Maybe I'll do it on one of my live feeds. Just talk about how the model train industry in its day tried, when it was struggling in the toy industry, losing its market, so to speak, and how it tried to stay current or latch on to other popular movements. So that would be a cool idea for another theme or another stream.
There's a video too. It's on my playlist. If you kind of cycle through my playlist, on the model railroading and other videos, it's on that playlist. But a guy had a Batman boxcar, and I'm talking about from the 1960s Adam West Batman.
Right.
And it was such a cool car because it had the lithograph on the side, and it was actually Adam West and the guy that played Robin. I forgot what his name is.
Burt Ward.
Yeah. And but it actually had them on the side of the car climbing the wall.
Well, I showed it on my live stream.
It was an actual still shot from the show that they plastered.
I showed it on my live stream a couple of weeks ago. The Maryland has for kids in their startup series. It's a DC Justice League locomotive, and then all the individual cars, a Green Lantern car, a Wonder Woman, trying to catch into that comic book industry again. But yeah, there was Batman everything back then. See, I was a kid back then. I mean, I was 3 when the Batman show started and 6 when it ended. And that's another story as well to avoid getting into. But I didn't like the Batman show until Batgirl came along.
I'm actually shocked that nowadays they haven't dabbled into the anime stuff as far as putting that on their trains. Because
I wonder if in Japan they have, though.
See, they did it. Kato did a Evangelion Neon Genesis train set.
That was really wild.
And it had a collector's box. It was in one of the issues of Model Railroad News.
Okay.
It was such a cool train. They actually did a real train like that. And it was the Japanese bullet train.
Yep, the Shinkansen, yeah.
Yeah. And they actually wrapped it in this Neon Genesis Evangelion paint job. And they had commissioned Kato to do an in-scale set of it.
That would have been cool looking. That would have been.
And
really
it was a
cool.
limited edition set. I think there were only like 10,000 of them ever made.
Totally unrealistic, but very cool looking. I can picture it because I know Evangelion and the Neo Genesis stuff, and
it was to coincide with the. I would have to look this article up to make sure, but I think it was like the 30th anniversary of Neon Genesis Evangelion, which coincided with the 50th anniversary of the bullet train. Okay. So they were actually working the 2 anniversaries together.
Okay.
Which was really cool. But like I said, I'm kind of surprised they haven't dabbled into that more, especially with shows like My Hero Academia doing so well. You got a lot of these newer shows coming up.
Probably, there's somebody
really
sitting there going, Japanese anime and manga, trains, totally different worlds, no way. And there's somebody like you going, hey, it'd be interesting if they tied them together.
Well, they did Galaxy Railways. You have a big boy that flies through space.
Some things are too far apart to cross pollinate, but I remember there was a Voltron model train. You know, I remember.
Oh, that'd be cool. I ain't never saw one of those.
Yep, I remember in the early '80s. It might have been a Tyco, it might have been Mattel, but I think it was a Tyco Voltron model train.
It would have had to been Tyco. That'd be the only company I could think of that would do something like that.
Because Voltron was the first one I remember coming across. Was it? No, it wasn't Voltron. What was the first one? Oh, what were they called? Because it got mixed in with my what were they called? Micronauts. That's what they were called, the Micronauts, which was a Japanese action figure line that I got into in the early 70s, and it became a Marvel comic book later. But Micronauts had a train that was really cool. I never got that.
And I apologize, Anthony. These trucks aren't Dodges; they're actually Fords. But
you do know, of course, that in that truck series, Dodge dominated.
Yeah, they did. I remember those years.
Dodge dominated,
and then they had to leave.
Just like we dominated NASCAR until we left in '75. Okay,
and so dominated the truck series.
I think talking about how awesome Dodge is a great way to end this stream today.
Exactly.
How much Dodge?
You had to hand me, Anthony.
Got to do it. Just real quick, I'm going to share this one bit with you real quick. These are what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned tripping stones. You will find these in front of buildings throughout Germany, where it says basically here lived the person's name, year they were born, the year they were deported from their home, arrested and deported, to what prison camp, death camp they were sent, and if they know the date, that's murdered. Otherwise, like here, it just like here it says they don't know the year, but they were murdered. And notice they never say died. Were murdered in the Minsk ghetto, deported 1941. And then if they don't have the exact date, they just say assume they were killed in this place. But that's that. All right. We managed to do an hour and a half of me just babbling about my German city, which has nothing to do with Australia or Artie. But hey, he asked me to do this stream for him, and I did. So hopefully he's happy with it. But
I probably made Artie jealous too with my fleet showing off here.
No, that was cool. I was glad we could do that. I know Thomas has already left because we only got a couple of people out. I think the only people left are the ones on screen. But to anybody that's still left, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate the information from Split Rock and, of course, from you, Randall. And as always, Jean Ricard has a lot of, he doesn't necessarily say a lot, probably because I don't give anybody a chance to get a word in edgewise. But when he does, he always has such great questions and great insight and comments. So Jean Ricard and Randall, thank you for coming up.
Appreciate it, Anthony.
I'll just say one thing. I'm sorry to all the persons in the chat if I haven't responded to what they have written, but I don't have the chat on screen.
Right.
So I don't respond to it, and I'm sorry if I had offended somebody by
no, you haven't offended anybody, because I would have linked that to you or popped the picture up, where we we pop up the comment. If there's a comment aimed at you, I would have specifically put it up. So you do not offend anybody. You are except me. You offend me all the time.
Then I will just offend you one last time. I would really like to know, when were you born? What year were you born?
1963, December of 1963. I am officially the last boomer, baby.
Okay.
You're 21 years older than I am, Anthony.
1963.
Yeah.
Sorry I made you feel old.
So, damn it, you are just about a half a year older than me.
Yeah, so respect your elders. You
No,
young
I won't.
whippersnapper.
I won't.
I
Stop coming on
I
my
con-
stream and
I
offending me.
I constantly respect my elders. You know, the first live told on YouTube.
Yeah,
So
I cut off Jean Ricard again. I gotta let him finish his thought there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So
And see, that's the
thank you.
scary part. Joyce is only 2 years younger than me.
Yeah, but she's so much prettier.
I would hope so. I think for both our sakes, it would suck if I were prettier than Joyce.
Yeah. The only thing that one could say in that matter is that she might have a sight problem because she chose you.
Oh, I was handsomer when I was younger. I was handsomer when I was younger.
Okay.
I had my hair when I needed it.
Yeah.
I got married. I got married and my hair said, our job is done, and it left.
Yeah. Well,
Jeez.
I'm going to leave now because
Yes.
I can see
Well,
the sun is almost
yeah, you
rising
stayed up
here.
all night, dude.
Yeah. But thank you very much for the stream here, and I'm leaving now. Bye-bye.
All right,
Have a
take
good
care.
night,
Goodbye,
John.
Sean. All right, everybody, I'm going to be popping it off. Thanks for anybody who stayed all 3 hours and 20 minutes. That means I have now been broadcasting today for 6 hours because I was on 2.5 hours earlier today on my own live stream and then filling in for Artie.
Hey, Anthony, sorry I missed your first stream today because I was doing other stuff. I had to at least get a couple hours sleep, and then I had to go up and visit with my dad for a little bit. So
never apologize. Life happens. Like I missed both of Vinny's things. I missed the stream last night because I was out of town. And hopefully Vinny doesn't hold a grudge, but yeah, so you never apologize. Life happens. If you have time, you pop in. I appreciate those who pop in. I'm hoping Artie is writing me an overtime check. I'm expecting time and a half over my usual salary because normally, but then again, Artie and I went 4.5 hours with Jean Ricard 2 weeks ago. So anyhow, I'll keep babbling. So I should say goodnight and say goodnight. So
been fun, Anthony. Take care.
So good day, mates. And we didn't have any Aussies on today. So anyhow, take care, everybody. We're off.
Guys.
Bye-bye.